Good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, Good afternoon to some of you who are in far places, and actually, good evening to some of you on the other side of the world. But again, today is another day for us to talk about, business Liberia, things Liberia, and we are excited, to be doing so because it's what we do and it's how we are able to communicate some of the key things to that's happening in the country, especially from a business and economic perspective, sometimes financial. So we really look forward to these kind of shows. We really want your input as a listening audience. We hope that you can share the show and encourage others who may be interested in these kind of um business situations, impacts, and other things that actually directly affect our country in significant ways. So, um, before we start the show today, I just want us to give a moment of silence for, if you can look at what's scrolling at the bottom of the screen, that moment of silence is for Mrs. Felita Phillips. She's the wife of our panels here, co-host, um, idea generator, Mr. Akeem Phillips. Hopefully, you understand that he's going through some very tough times now, so he cannot be around. But we just ask for a moment of silence. Wonderful, and he's preserving her memory. He says her memory will never go away, and he's a believer. He believes in the Lord. He's standing on that faith that the Lord makes the decision regardless of how you plan your things, and hopefully the strength that he exhibited on the phone to me will sustain him, will carry him forward, and his faith as well. So for today we have a very interesting show. We are waiting for a couple of panelists. I won't call their names just in case they don't show up, so they don't look bad. But this episode is critical. We'll call it, you know, policy unpack. We can call it port power. We can call it unpacking Liberia Seaport reform bills. What's happening is there have been two major bills that are on the floor right now, and our two panelists are going to be able to give us some history of the bill, the two bills, as well as the current situation of the bill. The first is the Liberian Seaports Regulatory Act, LSPRA, and then the Liberia Seaport Decentralization and Modernization Act. Um, so a lot of things have been going on since those acts have come, in the public space. One is the fact that one is a regulatory act. It tries to um, centralize oversight into one agency or new agency that is being created. And the other one is a decentralization act. It says modernization, but we'll come to that modernization piece because I'm not seeing it anywhere in the act. Um, but the decentralization piece is where it creates full autonomous ports. And we get into those specific locations of those ports. Um, and people wonder there's some conflict there in terms of centralization and decentralization. So that's why we're trying to get our two panelists who one seem to think one way and the other one seem to think the other way about these acts. But unfortunately, you know, they haven't come on yet, but we're still hoping. I was having an exchange with one of them, and oh my God, what is it's funny. The link is right in the chat. Give me a chance. Let me talk to the man because it's weird that he would not see this link and it shows. But it is funny though. He could be right because I don't see the two blue check marks on the link, but the subsequent messages between me and him show the two blue check marks. That's strange. I haven't seen that before. But yeah, he says he wanted another person to join the show. Um, but hopefully, I think the show will be good. I think they will join. Um, he said he's coming, so we'll see them soon. But let's set the foundation for the show because it's important that people understand these two acts. Let me share the screen and put up the acts so that we can read some pieces from the acts before, and the rationale within the act about why the acts are necessary. The whereas, all those things that in the beginning of the act, when they are putting forward an act. So let's see if we can share the screen here and just read a couple of excerpts from the two acts so people can understand why these acts um, are coming about. So I will do a share of the entire screen so um, I don't have to go back and forth. Hmm. Cyrus, I don't know if you can hear me, but this says your devices are not connected. Um, so this is the Seaports Regulatory Act. But I think we have one of our panelists, so I will stop sharing and add our panelists to the show. Okay, that's one of our panelists, Mr. Amula Mame. Um, we are still waiting for the other one, Cyrus. Um, so Mame, before I, kind of reshare what I was doing, I was sharing the act to read a couple of excerpts from it. But if you can please introduce yourself, even though I do think you don't need much introduction, but please introduce yourself. Um, can you hear me, Amula?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, Chairman Va. I can hear you.
Wonderful. Um, Please introduce yourself. I know you don't need introduction, but please
Yeah,
do.
good to be here. I'm Ambola Mame. I'm interested in the reform of the port sector. I believe the port sector play a very important role for the transformation of the country. And I'm concerned that if we do it right, we stand a chance of addressing a lot of issues around price of commodities, around economic growth, around small business thriving. And if we do it wrongly, we stand the risks of the reverse of those things, increasing prices, strangulating small businesses, putting unnecessary pressure on government, and making our port sector unattractive. So that's my interest. The port is just not a place to generate revenue. It's the anchor for growth in the country, especially a country that is highly dependent on import and export of commodities. So that port is the anchor of economic growth. And if we can fix it and make it right, solve all the historical legacy problems, it will really, really help the country.
Wonderful. So, folks, the man has clearly stated his position, where he's coming from, where his interests are, and it's real. The port is extremely significant for most places. It's the gateway to the country, the gateway to the economy, and how you change things around. How you structure your port, how you structure your policies around the port. Those are all critical elements to ensuring that um, you can move your country forward. So let's really delve into this. Our other panelist, he seems to be having a little bit of problem with his device connection. I'm trying to have an exchange with him here, and it's not working. But yeah, so what's happening is, oh, okay, there we go. Wonderful. Um, his camera is now on. Camera is off. We're going back and forth. But anyway, our other panelist is Mr. Cyrus Gray. Um, Cyrus Gray, from my perspective, is one of the you know, authorities in terms of knowledge and experience when it comes to maritime and when it comes to port activities. He will state his own position about where he stands on these two bills. Um, but it should be a wonderful show. It should be an interesting show with the perspectives we have from these two individuals. And we have already been in a couple of different chat rooms stating our positions, and that's how it evolved for us to be here to actually, share with the public the information around the post so that people can better understand what is the significance of these two bills. How do they really transform or even maybe disrupt the port sector? What are the risks and challenges involved? And what are the benefits to us as a country? So we are excited to have them. Sarah, your video is now on, your mic is on mute. So I want to, yes, okay, wonderful. Thank you, Cyrus. So if you can just give us some introduction, and then we can start to delve into the topics related to this
Um,
show.
so how you guys doing? First, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Good.
Okay, good. Well, my name is Cyrus Gray. Like Ava earlier stated, I'm glad to be on the show. I'm not particular about taking one side or the other on these two bills that have been passed. They all have a profound transformative impact on the port sector. But I wanted to participate in the discussion to flag uh, what the bills really try to say and align them with the best practice in the port sector. But to start, I wanted to do a little bit of disclaimer because I'm embedded in the industry. I'm currently in Liberia. I provide consultancy for a few port-related institutions. One of them is the Chinese Baochico. They're building a port just in Bombing outside, just north of or northwest of Rossville. So I provide consultancy for Baochico in the port development that is ongoing there. They're about 40% of the way. Most Liberians don't know about it. So this is the first concession since Lamco that has have been given mineral rights in Bapolu, and they're building their own port, seaport, to export it. Sometime in the discussion, I will talk about the structure of that and how that relates to the issue of um, regulation and privatization of the port. I'm also providing consultancy for the Dutch firm called MTBS, Maritime Transport Business Solution. They've been hired by a Moroccan port operator called Marsa Morocco that is in negotiation with the Free Port of Monrovia, or the MPA, to build a $250 million terminal inside the Port of Monrovia. So that is part of what's going on. I mentioned this to say that I do not speak here on their behalf. I'm participating in this as an expert in the industry who like to share on the invitation of Abatupa what I think about the two bills that are before. The one is before the president for signature, and the other one has been sent back to conference in the legislature. So I look forward to this discussion. I had earlier also invited somebody who I think will bring a lot of value to the discussion. His name is Mohammed Laveli. He's also a port expert. He worked with the port forever. Trained at the World Maritime University. I think he still works with the Bureau of Maritime Affairs or the Maritime Authority in some role in the port. He's the past president of the World Maritime University Alumni Association of Liberia. Often people ask question about, oh, what kind of training people do they have in Liberia? Well, Mohammed and others will tell you that there are at least 30 Liberians that are trained up to graduate level in port management, in various areas of maritime affairs, from maritime learning, training, stewardship on vessels, and they have significant experience. Part of the training required them to do field studies at some of the best ports in the world. So I'm looking. I sent a link to Mohammed. I hope that he can join us to give us some perspective of this. So, like I said earlier, I don't come to this discussion necessarily taking one side or the other on the issue of whether the law should be passed or not, but to discuss the law, the contents of the law relative to what the standards best practices are around the world. So thank you for welcoming me, Alba. I look forward to this discussion.
Wonderful, wonderful introduction. And you really share some new information that could, have some input into the discussion. Where it seems like Mohammed has joined us. Um, Without any delay, we add Mohammed to the. Mohammed, are you there? Yeah, we know it seems like there could be some audio problem. Mohammed, can you hear me? Well, Mohammed can hear me, but we'll keep him on until he can participate or until he can start to hear us. But it's wonderful for him to join us. And this Prince Cyrus raised is right. A lot of times, um, for different opportunities, different positions, people claim Liberia does not have the expertise. But I'm of a different angle. I think the search effort for the experts we have is not robust, is not expansive, and sometimes people already have their own in their own mindset what they want to or what they want to do with that position or who they want to put in those key positions that require true expertise. But unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But we are happy to have three people with us who are knowledgeable about this whole put issue. So let's start off with Amula. Amula, what and let's separate when we should be kind of specific so people can understand that we're dealing with two bills. This is a complex issue, and reference the bills appropriately, right? The regulatory bill, let's label it that. The decentralization bill, let's label it that, so that people can understand where we are going and what specific bill we are talking about. Yes, there's some crossover, but when we get to that, we can speak about the crossover. So Amula, what is the decentralization bill saying versus what the um, regulatory bill is saying? You're on mute right now. Yes.
Yeah, basically the regulatory law, the regulatory bill is saying that they want to establish an institution to regulate the port. So that institution role will include port regulation, but as per the law, that institution also has the right to acquire and operate port, which we consider as being unacceptable, and it doesn't reflect anything around reform. The best practice that we've seen in Liberia over time and other places is to separate regulatory functions from commercial and operational rules. So you can create a regulator according to you to solve a problem, and you say that regulator also has the right to acquire and operate ports. The second thing is, and this is not me saying it, the Liberia Maritime Authority has listed over, I think, up to 15 different core functions that are not port related, that are not mainstream port related, up to 15 of them, that this new institution has replicated. For example, the law says the new institution will set standard for maritime trainings, but the Maritime Authority is the one leading the setting of standard for training, even has the Maritime Institute and maritime programs. So you take that function from them. It says it shall represent and execute the Maritime Convention on behalf of the Republic of Liberia. Those are functions already executed by the Maritime Authority. So I just listing 2, but there are up to 15 of them that the Maritime Authority listed. You see, if you pass a law, you'll be duplicating our function. You'll be creating confusion in regulatory rules, which will not be good for the maritime program. That's the second issue. Core issues. Most importantly, we decided, okay, if you want to do reform, there are 2 things. You check around and see how others are doing it. And it doesn't mean if others aren't doing it, you shouldn't do it. It could be a novel idea, right? You could check around, nobody doing it. You say, but nobody doing it, let me do it. So it could be an invention. So the first thing we do, we check around and see who's doing it. Then we check in West Africa, we check across Africa. We couldn't find any country that has a separate regulator regulating ports in addition to the Liberia Maritime Authority. The only country we found was South Africa that has a regulator that primarily is only regulating port tariff. So we said, let's take a break. What are we doing here? This is not a practice across Africa. So we took that off. Then we said, okay, let's see, maybe this could be a novel idea. Then we try now to assess the bill. When we assess the bill, we realize that it's creating more problems than trying to solve problems. So it's nothing novel. It duplicates the function of maritime. It says the regulator will be an operator which is playing the referee and player role at the same time. It said this regulator will have the right to impose additional port user fees. Vessels coming in will have to pay to them. But those same vessels are also paying some fees to the port authorities that are operating at. They will have rights to put some charges at the port according to them to use it for port development. So, but if you create this institution, we already complaining as a country, no money, no money. Then you want to create a new bureaucracy that will survive on the national budget, that will survive on additional port user fees, which will eventually increase cost of doing business and transfer the cost on people. So it's problematic. One, it duplicates the function of a referee and a player. It puts additional pressure on government budget, which is already inadequate. It puts additional port user fees while we're trying to reduce port user fees. It duplicates the role of the Maritime Authority, thereby creating regulatory confusion. So it is not a best practice across Africa. We have not seen it. Then domestically, for all the reasons I cited, it's problematic. So we say, hold on. This regulatory agency is not needed. The Maritime Act gives the Maritime Authority the right to regulate port and harbor activities, the operation of port and harbor activities in Liberia. Let the Maritime Authority execute that function. If we realize that there are gaps and lapses, the best thing to do is to strengthen the capacity of the Maritime Authority to enforce its regulatory authority over ports, rather than creating a new institution to do it and creating regulatory confusion, putting pressure on businesses and playing a referee and a player role. Let the Maritime Authority take its responsibility. So let's start with the Port Regulatory Act first.
Thank you.
There are a lot of other issues, basic minor issues in the law that are just confusing. You didn't set up a board, but you give the board authority.
Yes, there's words in there.
There's no board set up in the act. But when you go down, you see there are functions for the board. How board will be constituted, how they will be appointed, what's their tenure, nothing at all. Certain point you say those appointed will work to the will and pleasure of the president. When you go down to a certain point, you say they will only be dismissed. They are tenure, they will only be dismissed based on cost. So those are the minor issues. We can talk into that. But the core issues were what I highlighted before.
Thank you. Mohammed, can you hear me now? Mohammed, can you hear me? And seeing that we're having network problems with Mohammed. Cyrus, you heard Amulai's concerns with the port regulatory law or act, and you did say one act is before the president and one act has been sent back. Which one of the acts is before the president for signature, and which one has been sent back before you get into the regulatory piece?
That's even said news for me. Anyway.
Stars, you're on mute.
Thank you, Abba. The Port Regulatory Act has been sent back to the legislature and is in conference. The act to
Can you
decentralize.
just share with our audience what in conference means?
So that means it's going back to the both houses of the legislature to harmonize whatever issues that the executive figure out that needs to be fixed. That's what I
Okay,
mean in conference.
wonderful.
So I mean, I listened to Mambu's Discord and I liked it. I want to elaborate on it a little
Is
bit,
somebody
but I would
phone
like,
ringing?
yeah, I would like you, Abba, to give me a second. I want
Okay, go
to.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Another maritime expert is calling my phone. Give me a second. Let me talk to him. Maybe.
That's wonderful. You can send him the link, let him come on. We appreciate a diverse
Yeah.
group of experts here who can really share with the Liberian people and help them to understand.
So give me a second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm sorry Mohammed is going through the challenges with the network. But we would have loved to have him here. Yeah, folks, just so you understand, I share some of the similar concerns that Mame has expressed with this bill. I went through the bill myself. I noticed, some of the inconsistencies there. Um, from my perspective, it just seemed like um, it was kind of premature in terms of how they did it, the thoughts they were, trying to push, the structuring. There was a lack of clarity in the structuring, um, with regards to the issue of regulator or pure regulator and supervisory. I mean, the act actually says that this group was supervised, right? This new body was supervised. If you are in a supervisory role, that's an executive function. That violates the doctrine of separation of powers in my mind, right? So there need to be more clarity. So I'm glad that bill has been sent back, you know, in conference, and the two houses maybe they can seek input from some of these um experts that are around here, for some of the people who actually, write the law in terms of drafting the script so that there's coherence, there's flow, but we cannot have a bill where the legislature, okay, also is exercising direct administrative control, where they can appoint or dismiss people within that executive staff, that executive function. So let's, I guess maybe in essence, we need to table that bill, but it's still good because since they are revisiting the bill, this discussion may serve as some of the substance that they can look at to address the legality, the constitutional issues. And I like to use this word cannibalization of functions where, my man mentioned maritime. Yes, if you look at the regulatory act, if I share that, you will see that the entire thing is an act amending the maritime law and restating an act to create an independent seaports regulatory agency to provide for regulation and sustainable development of port operations and services in Liberia, right? To facilitate a safer, orderly, and transparent development of port facilities. So they're putting security in their hands too. And port security is something very critical, and Cyrus can probably speak to that. Some of our other maritime experts can probably speak to that. But the role of this institution is not clear. It's overlapping with NPA, it's overlapping with maritime, it probably even overlapping with the Ministry of Transport. So we got to understand all of those things. Then the other thing Mami mentioned is just the organizational structure and the coherence around it. Is it a board? Is it just the executive order? Is it just oversight by the legislature? So we need to be very specific in our act. And
Okay.
hopefully that will happen. Cyrus, you
Okay,
ready?
Abba. Yeah, I'm ready. So,
Let me add Mohammed to the stage again, and hopefully he can hear us this time. Mohammed, can you hear us?
hello,
Yes, Mohammed.
hello,
You can keep your video off.
hello.
It will be a problem. Yes, we can hear you, Mohammed.
Okay, Mohammed, good, welcome. I just got a call from Cyrus Johnson. He is another maritime expert. He's the head of the Alumni Association for the graduates of the World Maritime University. Like Mohammed, he's also super informed. So I sent a link to him if he's joined us. I think we will benefit from it. But I like the way Abdullah has tailored the discussion. So let's start first with the regulatory agency,
Right.
right? That the proposed regulatory agency. So let me give some context, right? I used to work at the Ministry of Transport as Assistant Minister for Shipping. That was like 30 years ago. And that department was responsible to regulate the maritime industry, not the ship registry, but the domestic industry. So if you're a shipping agency, you want to do business in Liberia, that department licensed you. They also were basically regulating the port, since the Minister of Transport were also the chairman of the board, the Port Authority. This is the model of ports. First thing, ports are businesses. Most ports are municipalities, so they're owned by city or states generally, and they have a monopoly, right? Now, over the couple of last 50 years, the ports started to reform themselves where they gave some of their services to private companies. In the port business, they call that a landlord. So if a port, for example, the Freeport of Monrovia gave part of a port the main key to APM terminals. So APM terminals doing the actual operations. So the port, in their relationship with APM terminal, they are a landlord. So they have two roles now. They are also a regulator because they are regulating APM terminal, and they are also a business because they're benefiting from the work of APM terminal. So you have that model around the world also. So ports, you go to the Port of Houston, the 25-mile ship channel have about 90 terminals in the port. Private companies, they report to, they do business for the Port of Houston. But the Port of Houston is regulated by the Federal Maritime Commission. All ports in the United States are regulated by the Federal Maritime Commission. The Federal Maritime Commission is not a business. It's just the government institutions that enforces the law relative to port and all the maritime related functions. In Nigeria, the port is regulated in Nigeria by the Federal Ministry of Marine and Blue Energy, almost a form of the Ministry of Transport. In Ghana, the port is regulated by the Ministry of Transport. In Sierra Leone, the port is regulated by, actually, the port in Sierra Leone is a different animal because it holds the regulatory and operational authority, but the law says that it cannot operate a port. So it outsources the port work. So it's a landlord. So it becomes the regulator and then give licenses to private ports. Then in Ivory Coast, the port is regulated by the Ministry of Public Works. The point I'm trying to raise is that the port being a monopoly cannot regulate itself. It has to be regulated by another institution. When I was at the ministry in 1998 or 99, because of some circumstance, the president of Liberia interpreted the law that created the Bureau of Maritime Affairs at the time to mean that the department that I manage should be part of the Bureau of Maritime Affairs. The Bureau of Maritime
You
Affairs,
mean the shipping department?
correct. So at that time, the shipping department licensed shipping agencies, freight forwarders, stevedore, and all that as a regulator. That rule was passed to the Bureau of Maritime Affairs. The Bureau of Maritime Affairs later on became an authority. So the Bureau of Maritime Affairs licenses all maritime related activities. They should also regulate the port, but I think that not too clear in the legislation, so it's kind of a soft side there. But the creation of a regulatory authority, I read through the act myself. Apart from the fact that the regulatory authority will normally regulate ports, some business of port is being given to that authority, which is an anomaly. Secondly, most of the things that they are ascribing to, without changing the maritime law, they are assuming for themselves those rules that are already with the Liberian Maritime Authority. So in my estimation, there is really no need for that regulatory authority. If anything, the maritime law now should be adjusted in a way to support the regulation of ports. If the government want to implement the other law, which is the deregulation and modernization of ports, even if they are not going to do that, because currently the Port Authority is operating in the port, the free port, operating in Buchanan, operating in Sano in Maryland. I mean, in Maryland, even though at the minimum scale, but they're also regulating those companies that they give a private rights to run sport. For example, Bauchico that I talk about, that I consult for, they have an agreement with the Port Authority to build that port on the mouth of the Port River. So the Port Authority is regulating them. But the Maritime Authority also had to give them a license. So it's almost like a duplication of the role of government in dealing with a private operator. So as we are right now, in the face of this regulatory law, which is clear, is overclouding most of the industrial rules that have already been filled, I think we need to strengthen the Liberian Maritime Authority from the regulatory perspective. Since they are completely away from port operations, they can oversee that, just like the Federal Bureau, the Federal Maritime Commission in the United States regulates ports. And that's my take on the issue of the regulatory authority. In summary, there's really no need for it. One of the issues that Abdullah raised, which is a solid issue, there are many things we are doing right now that are pricing our port out of competition. So if you create a whole new agencies and you are requiring shipping lines and port users to pay them money for services that they're already paying for with the Port Authority or whichever port they call, then will be increasing the price of call. And also it will translate to the price of commodities on the market and making our ports unfavorable. So I would stand for, I'm happy this review is going on. I don't think there has been enough opportunity for public discourse on these laws. I think that it has gone back to conference. It will be a good opportunity to allow the authors of this law to make a compelling case. Why do we need this organization when we already have the Liberian Maritime Authority? And that law, I see nowhere in the law where it say it is taking away those rights from the Liberian Maritime Authority that it already has, and it has the requisite staff and capability to be able to enforce those laws. I think we should strengthen the Maritime Authority rather than creating another regulatory agency.
Thank you, Cyrus. Mohammed, welcome to the show. You are on mute. Can you unmute? Is Mohammed frozen? Cyrus, you think he's frozen? Mohammed, it's okay for you to turn your video off if
Mohammed, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you give us some indication that you can hear us?
Yeah, Mohammed is having some serious technical problems. Okay, yes, unmute. I saw him shaking his head. Maybe he can hear us. Mohammed, can you unmute? Can you unmute yourself?
While we wait for Mohammed, it's important for us to understand a couple of things. You see, look, there is no poor country. Inherently, there is really no poor country, because the most important value of a nation state is sovereignty is priceless. The reasons why countries are either poor or rich is because of public policy and institutions. So this, as we see these maybe good ideas, best intentions coming up with these laws, it's good that they be subject to scrutiny without bias or partisan perspective on how they can really bring value to the country, because there are enormous opportunity for growth in Liberia today. Mohammed, are you still muted?
Okay, Mohammed is on mute. Oh no, he's still muted. But Sarah, your point is well taken, and that's the thing. He's having technical issues. Mohammed, we
It's
are
on mute.
here. Once you resolve it, you can come back on stage.
Mohammed, say something. I don't see the mute anymore.
Oh,
Okay,
you
let's
don't?
go ahead. Yeah, but let's go ahead. He will come back.
No,
He'll figure that
the
out.
mute button is right there in the red by his name. He's on mute.
Yeah, it went out a little
Yeah,
bit.
he's still on mute.
Okay.
It's internet
So
issue.
what Sarah is saying is key, folks. And most of the time we say Liberia is rich, Liberia is rich. There's so many countries in the world that don't have the natural resources. So let's forget about natural resources. There are still huge opportunities for business. We do have Cyrus Johnson joining us now, which will be wonderful. As soon as he can get his camera on, we add him to the stage. So the public policy, the political economy, the people who run it, our lawmakers, our executive branch, and the decisions they make, that's what determines whether we are rich or we are poor. And then those decisions need to be implemented. And implementation, we have seen, is a major problem. That's why I'm an advocate for ensuring that there is a certified project manager on every Liberian project, because it will help how that project is planned, how is executed, how is controlled, how is monitored. All of those things are essential for project. But at least it seems like we are basically on the same page. And like I was reading, Cyrus, in terms of this whole port regulation, it says it's amending the maritime law. That's what it says in the introduction, an act amending the maritime law. Okay, and
Yeah,
then
but
reads.
when you're amending the law, you have to state the actual provisions that you're actually changing.
Thank you. So that's
In
why
that,
this act, it seems like a hurry act to kind of counter the Decentralization Act.
Let me
But
say something.
yeah, go ahead.
The Port Regulatory Act actually stated clearly the provision of the Maritime Act that it is amending. It went specifically for the provision of the Maritime Act that says the Maritime Authority shall have the authority to regulate port and harbor activities in Liberia. It is that provision they said the amending to transfer that authority to the new agency. So that
So
one.
hold on. Wait. 1 second. Let's read
that's my
the
point.
portion,
Let's find
Cyrus.
that provision. Yeah.
Yes. Let me just go to the act and share where that specific provision is coming from. So I will share my screen here. Window. I gotta go. Okay. So right here, without prejudice, let me zoom this a little. I don't know if people can see it.
What page is that? 18, sir?
Yes, 18 going into 19. Okay, so if you start from number 1, general powers, the agency may, by regulation, make such provision out of expediency. We speak good English, right? And we Liberians? Okay. A, for carrying out the conventions of the International Maritime Organization, IMO, and related protocols and regulations referred to in this section as the convention, who relates to international standards and recommended best practices, and is adopted in accordance with the convention and any amendments thereto, or of any such annex which is in accordance with the convention. For carrying out any other treaty or agreement in the field of maritime to which Liberia is a party. So basically, it's just extracting from the Maritime Authority any of these functions that the Maritime Authority has held. So I'm even wondering who will go to the IMO meeting now. Is this new power?
They even about the way laws are written are not narratives. If you are trying to speak to an existing law, you will quote the numbers.
You quote a specific section.
Articles of the law, because
the
that general provision may be common to many things. And one of the things that is glaringly already problematic, the Liberian maritime law is conclusive of our international registry, the relationship with LISCAR, how roles are divided, the permanent representatives in London, and all. Just writing a statement like this that you're assuming that role is really not enough. How do you, so all of a sudden the London office now falls under this regulatory body,
Right.
the commissioner in New York fall under this
I mean,
body.
it took over completely.
This car is anarchious. It's not clear at all. I don't think there's a lot of thinking that went a lot of effort that went behind, considering the complexity of the authority as it is already. This thing about if the regulatory agency, I understand that's what brought that. This followed the first law to decentralize and modernize the port, literally break up the MPA into individual independent ports. So there was a need to create a regulatory authority. But what it created went way beyond what was necessary for that. I think it would be easy to just try to create a second deputy commissioner of maritime affairs for port regulation and put all that function under that person, many of which they already have in the Bureau.
And that's true, because basically, look at number 2, without prejudice to the generality of subsection 1 of this section, the power conferred therein shall include power. And that phraseology, A, to enforce the regulations of the Liberia Maritime Authority pertaining to inspection, testing, supervision of sea crafts, personnel qualification, and the use of ports or harbors in Liberia. So
that's a usurpation of the maritime function that is well structured already. I also see I gave to that body the right to collect 10% of the port income.
Exactly.
Okay, 10% of the port income in the new law also go to the counties. Then 10% go to this. I don't understand how
it let 10% at the normal in Liberia.
Look, I'm happy that this thing has gone back to conference, and I hope they can subject it to scrutiny, get a lot more people involved. Now, when I hear people talk about, let's bring the lawyers. No, the lawyers, it's the rule of the lawyers are to look at the legal ramification. You need the experts in the industry who will tell you what is and what is not before you be able to put it into legal construct. And Mahmoud really struck some of the strong points about the lack of advocacy in this law. I hope they can take it back for a real keen discussion about it. I'm happy that we're having this discussion. I hope a lot more of these such discussions can be held to go into the specifics of some of these laws that may be very impactful. I don't see this ending now, because I know the maritime will stand up to try to rebut some of the cases for the promulgation of this new law.
Yes, I was trying to add Ambulai to maybe weigh in on this. But let's see if Cyrus can unmute and introduce himself. Cyrus, are you there? Cyrus Johnson?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Cyrus. Thank you for joining on very short notice. We're excited to have you and for the audience to sharing your expertise. I don't know how much you have listened to so far, but if you want to just introduce yourself and weigh in from a general perspective on these two acts, and then we hone in back into the regulatory act, that would be appreciated.
So thank you, Mr. Alvin. It's a pleasure sharing this platform with you. I see Ambulai and my own big brother, Mr. Gray. I either saw Mohammed. So my name is Cyrus Johnson. I'm a graduate from the World Maritime University in Mimo. I'm also the president of the World Maritime University Alumni Association, Liberia's chapter. I also work at Maritime, but I am also interested in the discussion because it is something that is of importance to our country, given our role in the position of Liberia on the international scene when it comes to maritime, and also our country and the sector. So I haven't followed this particular discussion because the invite just came from my big brother. So I tried to play more of a listening role to know exactly how the discussion has been going, and before I can weigh in. But I mean, let me quickly say this is a matter of importance to to all of us who are in the sector. I know we tried engaging before when the first bill in from the Senate, when we heard that it was passed. My team and I, including Clark Tume, who is the chair from our alumni standpoint, he's the chair on the National Stakeholders Engagement Committee. So as part of his scheduled engagement, we had just coincidentally met the Senate chair, committee chair on maritime, Senator Borcha Segwe. I think it was 2 days after the Senate had passed that. So when we went to have this acquaintance with him, and we learned that the Senate had passed, so we tried inquiring as to how the process was, what led to the crafting of the bill, and subsequently leading to the Senate passing, what informed that, whether we had stakeholders from the sector involved, and just basic inquiries. So he then told us that we will have more answers to that. He scheduled that we have something like a mini conference to have this discussion. But since then, we weren't successful in having this discussion until we heard that it was passed by the House of Representatives. So it is something that we are interested in because we saw some fundamental issues. So we thought to have some engagement as well. But I think this is good. These kinds of discussions are good for all of us to weigh in and see how we can try to flex some of the issues that the bill have as a matter of concern.
Right. No, wonderful. That's what we expect, right? That's how we build the intelligentsia in Liberia. That all these people who have the academic and professional experience in these different areas, and there's multiple areas where more professionals can weigh in on. But the socializing of these kind of bills, they reach out to different people to get input. It's not genuine, it's not clear, and it doesn't really happen in a lot of stages. Like you just mentioned how you met whoever was leading the effort, but they didn't reach back to you people. That happens a lot. I know I experienced that a significant number of times when I share my opinion about different bills, and even my mate, multiple stuff has come out that he has had input on, but at the point of time, they don't invite these people to probably give like professional testimonies or input into the finalization of these things. So hopefully, as we expand this platform to discuss these different issues of national concern more and more, especially when it comes to the economic side of things and not necessarily the political side, but again, no doubt politics control economics, and we need to have some insight into the political side, the reason and rationale for some of these things happening. So Mame, you just came back, you're in the back for a while. Do you want to weigh in on this before we move on, since we still have an opportunity in a long run or very short run to have some input onto this bill, this regulatory bill?
Yes. So for me, it is, like I said, it was a news to hear that they send the bill back to conference. And it brings us back to the question we've been having. What's the motive behind this bill? That everything about it is just marked by secrecy and hush hush. When a law is passed and the House of Representatives has issues and sending it for conference, they announce that we have passed this other bill. This other one will decline to pass because of XYZ reasons. And we're sending it back to the Senate for a conference committee. They did not do that. However, the Senate announced that they have passed both bills and sent it to the president. So for me to hear today that it's in conference, I'm shocked. Really, really shocked. The Senate said the bill has been passed and sent to the president for signature. The House of Representatives in their ruling did not say we have issues on XYZ and sending it to conference committee. It was the chairman of the who, when he came on Spoon, and we had a conversation and I laid out all these issues. That's how he said, okay, but then if that's the case, we'll send the bill back to the committee. But while he was saying that, the proponents of the bill were sending text message to Spoon and other people that I think the man talking that the bill has been passed, going to the president for signature. And for sure, the bill was sent to the president for signature. I mean, it's just, it tells you we need to open it up and look into it because people are hiding things. I wanted to just point to the specific provision where we talk about how in section 720, it says the Liberia Executive Law 32 are amended in 2010 to create the Liberia Maritime Authority is hereby amended as section 37. And this is the important part. And the authority and powers to regulate and supervise ports and harbor within the bailiwick of Liberia are now conferred. Yes, are now conferred on Liberia Agency. So they were specific in taking that responsibility. But beyond seaport regulatory function, they went way beyond. They even took function of the Coast Guard and put it under the agency. So like Sarah said, like I've been saying, this agency does not need to exist. The maritime authority have been responsibilities if I do so and creating a new agency that will bring on government on the post that will bring on producers. We want to run a small and effective government. We don't want to work on expanded government.
Charles, are you having a problem hearing Mame? Hold on 1 second, Ambula. Is there anybody else having a problem hearing him?
No, I heard most of what Mom said.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm having a little difficult time hearing Mommy. Yes.
Yeah, Mame, try again. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I was saying is clearly stated.
Yeah, it seemed like he dropped off. But yeah, what he's seeing is they do reference the Executive Law Title 12 and Section 37, where they're giving the powers to regulate and supervise ports and harbors to this Liberia Seaport Regulatory Agency. I mean, Cyrus, when you read that, what do you see, or both Cyruses, when you read it, what do you guys see based on what you know and how this can just come into effect and what kind of impact it can have?
No, I just thanks to Mahmoud for flagging that. I just saw that as
I mean, you can always mistake the Mane. The Mane is Mame, Mamey.
Mame. Yeah, sorry. I you know, I grew up way in Nima. I struggle with country names. Yeah.
Easy, your Joe. It's coming for you.
But you know, hey, look, the Liberian Maritime Authority is a complex institution. They have both domestic and international rules and implications. Very complex institution. I think whomever tried to write this law does not seem to appreciate that. All right. The Maritime Authority has not only those complex rules, but it is the only repository of the know-how that's necessary to do such a work. So for you to pass a law and presumably just try to capture most of that rule that's already well structured, I think the issue here is that if the idea is to deregulate the ports and make them autonomous and independent, then you need a regulator. And that regulatory role, I think, is best served is you actually strengthen the Liberian Maritime Authority instead of trying to create a whole new bureaucracy and adding all kinds of functions, most of which, if you read them, will just make the port calling the Port of Liberia more expensive.
Yes.
And maybe create all kinds of conflicts in who does what. And I don't think that's the intent of the decentralization and say modernization that the other law seeks to achieve. So
Okay.
my advice would be for this to this stuff to go to scrutiny. Mama said that the law is before the president. Well, the fact of the matter, because I've been engaged with this over the last week or so. There is only one law that was before the president before he left to go to the United States, and he had not signed that. That law was the one to decentralize and modernize the port. The other law has not left the legislature. I spoke
Okay.
to a good number of representatives. I would call one of them who you could just check with, Tuan Glikia from Nima District 6. He told me clearly that the law is in conference.
Okay. It's good to know that. At least it gives us and people who have interest the opportunity to be able to weigh in, and whether directly with the legislature or through the public platforms that are available to have some input. Cyrus, do you want to come in on this? Anything additional on this before we segue to the Decentralization Act? Cyrus Johnson.
So yeah, thank you, Mr. Tuba. So for me, I think um, there has to be more engagement with the progenitors or the proponents of this bill. We need to understand from which lenses they uh, projecting this, because, like Mama said, the rush in this has taken away all of the probably the beautiful ideas that they may have envisioned. So we need to have more engagement to see what exactly can the experts uh, uh, offer to what has been to what has been developed, because the idea may be good, and for the record, I speak not as an employee of Maritime, or not officially in the capacity as president, because this was just an impromptu stuff sent to me. So
Right.
it was a concerned person. So we can have more engagements. We are holding discussions around this. I know that the issue has gone far. I mean, this bill has gone far to the point where, yeah, it is before the text of the president. It tells the level of urgency that has to be attached when it comes to having these engagements. We had we had a discussion, and we thought to engage from the back. And Mr. Gray knows that we thought to have some engagements, but again, will we be given the chance? Can these politicians avail themselves and open up their offices for us to have these engagements, open manner? Because it is not about an individual lawmaker. It is about the image of our country. It is about what benefits Liberia, not just locally, but on the international scene. If we should hasten to do this bill and pass it into law, what implications are going to be there on the international scene locally? So I think there has to be more engagement, open-minded engagement, from all spectrums. So I think, from my own perspective, that would be helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Before we close out this topic, Mame, you want to add anything? Okay, so we're getting some insight here from Eugene Fangon. He said, correction, two laws were placed on the desk of the president, the National Food Agency and the port. He signed the food agency bill and left. The port bill is still being reviewed to the best of his knowledge. That's good to know. Thank you, Eugene, for your input. So yeah, Mame, go ahead if you want to add anything else in terms of the contradiction or the conflict of interest in this bill and how it's not exhaustive and covering other stuff. Yes,
I
sir.
know you want to go to. I know you want to go to our brother there, but maybe we need to clarify what Fagon said. Yes, two laws were placed before the president, but those are not the two laws we are talking about. The two bills we are talking about, one is for the
No,
decentralization, which
I
was
think what he's
placed before
trying
the
to say,
president.
I think he understands that. I think what he's trying to say is that the second law, this law was not actually placed before the president. Is the decentralization law that's probably in
Okay,
front of the president.
correct,
But there
Fagan.
were
So
two
the other
laws.
law, Yeah,
Both
the
laws,
other
but not the
law,
put laws.
good. The other law about the regulation which we have been faithfully discussing is not before the president.
Right.
Thank you for going.
All right. Cool.
Let me say this. Like I started from the beginning, the contradictions in the law, the confusion they bring, the burden they bring. It is not a best practice. Yes, in America and federal states, like Sarah mentioned, as per my research, in federal states, you will have a national regulator because the federal government still wants to have some eye on what is happening in the different states. So for that reason, in America and other federal states, you will have a national regulator regulating those federal ports. And this identical law was borrowed from a federal regime. If you read portion of the law, they did not edit it well. They left portion of the federal languages there. So you will
Yes.
see it say this will regulate federal, federal, federal. So it was borrowed from a federal regime and brought into a unitary decentralized regime. And that is why we need to be careful with it. To conclude, we want to call on the president. We want to call on the legislature. We want to call on other stakeholders. Port regulatory agency is not needed. The Maritime Authority has the statutory mandate to regulate port and harbor activities in Liberia. If for some reason, and I'm saying if for some reason those functions are not being executed as required, strengthen them and increase oversight. Maybe, like Sarah said, appoint a deputy commissioner for port regulation and supervision instead of creating a separate new agency that will put burden both on the government, on port users, on business people, and eventually increase the cost of doing business that will transfer high prices to our people. It is unnecessary. It was not thought of well. Let's set it aside and empower the Maritime Authority to do its function. That's how we'll close on this one.
Thank you. So folks, I think it's very clear that there are a lot of issues with this bill. There's some sweeping powers this new institution is giving. And the one question I want to ask Cyrus for, because I always ask for a cost benefit analysis for any law that comes about, and we're about to transition in a decentralization law, which is full of the potential of actually transforming our whole port sector. But is there any cost benefit analysis being done for that put that decentralization law? And have you heard about anything for this regulation law?
Before that question, before somebody comes in and answer, like, I just wanted to weigh in on what Mami said.
Okay.
Earlier, Big Brother Grace said maybe just maybe, there could be another position, deputy commissioner position established or created to, and shift that function be shifted under that person. I know he's very knowledgeable about how maritime runs. You already have an existing. He knows that you already have an existing position for deputy commissioner for technical services, and these technical issues are handled by the deputy commissioner in this regard. So probably you could just expand the functions of that deputy commissioner instead
So
of creating
what's the full
one
title of that commissioner? Deputy commissioner for what?
for deputy commissioner for domestic vessel registration and safety.
Okay.
So and the deputy commissioner handles technical matters, matters relating to domestic affairs and all of that. So all these technical issues are handled by this deputy commissioner, including issues with the port. So probably you could just expand the position, the functions of the deputy commissioner to include some of these very things that are being discussed.
Yeah, tell your boss man John Harvey that I don't want to get him out of the room.
Wait, I thought Harvey was overall administration. No?
No, he's Deputy Commissioner for Domestic Vessel Registration and Safety, and
Okay.
that has to do with the technical.
All right. So they can
Yeah,
call
but
him.
but Cyrus makes my point, right? So the department Harvey runs has the requisite staff, some of the best trained Liberians. They are regulating the ports and port users already. Like I said earlier, Pachico had to obtain her license, had to obtain the rights to set up transshipment points in the ocean, and the maritime will provide a technical.
Cyrus went out for a minute, but folks, you know, I'm a little biased because Mr. Harvey is like my childhood friend. We grew up on the rocks on Ashmont Street. His father and my father were both from Riverside, so they got our connection. And we've been friends since I want to say 1970 maybe. So that's like 55 years that I've known, Johnny Ball. That's what we call him, Johnny Ball, not um John Harvey or anything like that. So recently I've been engaged with him because there's a lot of forms, and this is just something about where the country needs to go in general. There's a lot of forms at the Maritime Authority that need to be automated. And across government, there's a whole bunch of automation that needs to happen and integration as well. So we've been talking to Maritime an interest group about helping them with forms, helping them with automation. So it applies. If there's any agency out there that need to automate their workflow, need to bring it into the 21st century, we can support that effort and help them. But it's necessary. Even the Ministry of Transport, when people go to get a license, the crowd that's there. And there are many other examples where, of crowding even right now with the whole national identification registration that's going on, it could be less tedious with the crowds that are there if there could be some form of automation to that form and you just coming at a scheduled time specific for you to go through your immigration discussion, for you to go through your whatever verification you need before you can get your ID. But those are things that in the wider scope of things can be discussed later, but it's just good to show how interrelated the need for technology is across government. So that's why when they talk about modernization in the next decentralization act is something that we really need to look at, understand where that comes in. And hopefully we'll be able to discuss that more robustly. So guys, thank you for this first segment. And now we go into the decentralization act because we already see all the flaws that are related to this regulatory act, and we're glad it's gone back on the in conference. Hopefully it can be scrapped completely, and the points that these professionals are making about strengthening the current maritime or just them exercising, if they already have that authority, fully exercising it for the benefit of the country and for improvement of our entire maritime port sector, that would be great. So yes, now Cyrus, when we're talking about this decentralization and the potential impact this bill can have, um, can you tell us what this decentralization bill is saying before I add what I think it's saying?
Well, thank you for asking me that question, though. And as I had earlier stated that no country is inherently poor. All right, whatever country prospers or fails is actually based on public policy and institutions. So there are two sides to this discussion. The port authority, as it is right now, is one model. It can be made to function properly. You can flag a whole lot of shortcomings, but that model also works if it is managed properly. And I would give some kudos to Ducle and his team. In the role that I have right now, consulting for a foreign company, I've had a chance to see some of the things they're doing. I mean, it surprised me to sit with these foreign companies and their financier, a group called Africa 50, to confirm to me that yes, they have negotiated with the National Port Authority and have sourced the funding to build a multi-purpose port inside the Port of Monrovia, valued at close to $250 million. So these guys have been there for less than 2 years and they're doing some stuff. So we got to give that to them. Howbeit, I said, if you look at the new act that is being brought forward to be made law, a simple description, it would be a different brand of what a port is. It seeks to literally take away the overarching National Port Authority and give each of the 4 ports autonomy and independence. And it also gives any subsequent port similar autonomy if it's created in another county. So for example, you have, by the letter of this law, you have a dry port that is envisaged in Nima County, close to Ganta. If that gets off the ground, then that would be the port of Nima, a port of Ganta.
So sorry for our audience, just pause a little bit. You talk about a port that you are consulting with, a port that is being built, right? Is that a dry port?
No, the port that is being built is a private port on the mouth of the Po River entering the Atlantic Ocean. It's an iron ore export port owned by the Chinese company called Bao Chico.
Okay.
They're building that port as part of their mineral development commitment they made in
And
the concession.
they are in consultation with NPA, or they have already had a clear contract to do that port? Because if you look at this new law, it talks about new ports as well.
So they have a 25-year agreement with the National Port Authority. The National Port Authority secure the 200.
South is having a little bit of problems. South is having a little bit of problem.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Where I am right now, I'm using my phone as a modem. So every time that phone rings, I'm kicked out. So pardon me for that. But to answer your question, the Bachico port is being built at the mouth of the Po River. They build a road from that Po River to their mines in Bapolu, and their intent is to complete that port and use it as the export route for the iron ore. That port, apart from the fact that it's part of the mineral development agreement, they have a 25-year port operating agreement with the National Port Authority. They also have a license from the Liberia Maritime Authority to construct the port. They also have EPA licenses, considering all the EPA issues and all that.
What about the security features?
What the security features, I think that's something that is going to be embedded when the port is built. So the port is not operational yet.
Okay. No, I'm just concerned in general for a port. I mean, a private port, because we know the stories about private airports, you know, and this kind of stuff that goes on, especially with illegal stuff. So I'm just concerned about the monitoring of the cargo, what else is coming in.
So here, when the port, whatever port, whether it's a public or private port, you have the presence of all the relevant government institutions in that port. So for port security, you have the maritime, port state control, because they will be there to validate vessels coming in, their seaworthiness and all that. You have the Environmental Protection Agency dealing with issue of, because in the construction now, even that you have those involved because they might be doing blasting to open the ship channel. So even though it's a private port, it's not operating in silos. It's private because it's owned on a concession by a private company. It's just like APM terminal inside the Freeport of Monrovia, same thing. But it's just that port is outside of the Freeport of Monrovia, fully funded by a private company. But the government presence will also be there.
Yeah, I mean, this topic is interesting. Somebody has a question. Why a port at the mouth of the Po River and not at the Freeport? I mean, is there some justification? Is it the verticality of the road coming straight down to?
So good question. Good question, because there is an issue right now about the port that is being earmarked to be built in the Freeport. Ports follow cargo, so there has to be a demand for the port. In this case of Bauchico, they have a mineral deposit that they have secured an agreement for with the government, and they enter into an agreement in that MDR that they will export their own iron ore at their own port, which is a plus for Liberia, because one of the things is in the Western Cluster area. By Western Cluster, I mean mines in Bapolu, Bomi, and that part of the country. The access to port is very difficult. It's challenging. So to get other than China Union and Bond Mines that have rehabilitated the railroad, the Bomi Railroad is completely out because it has been crushed by population and is not politically expedient to be able to rehabilitate that railroad. So there is a challenge bringing iron ore for concessions that are in that region into the Freeport of Monrovia. So, the building of the port by Bauchico there is a great asset to Liberia. I would think that they may want to even use it to be able to source the other companies to export their iron ore there and create more value for everybody. That way we can move more ore out easily.
So we will need our kind of border experts to determine if Bapolu borders Monserrato. So I don't know whether there's a river in between. I'm just teasing folks who know the border discussion. Yeah, you see, before I go fast, somebody already said we need a lesson here on geography.
No, but you know, to tell you the truth, Liberians should be interested in this. I sat in a meeting with the Deputy Minister of Mines, William Hance, very knowledgeable about Liberia and the resource deposit in the Western Cluster, and he really overemphasized our limitation because of access to the port, and was even advising the investors who sat in the meeting with indirectly that he think that the future is to build a huge port in Cape Mount or Bomi to be able to absorb the flow of dry bulk, which is mostly iron ore that needs to be exported. Other than that, it would lock a lot of the resources that we have to export. If we're building a big port there, it will unlock a lot of opportunities.
Wonderful. Mame, I know we kind of jumped because of some of the comments in his introduction that Cyrus made about his role and all of that. So if you want to weigh in, we have somebody concerned with geography, and the same person is saying there's zero reason for a new port. So from your perspective, just at a high level now, in terms of the geography of where Bapolu is, the current infrastructure to bring anything from Bapolu to the Freeport of Monrovia versus building a new port. I mean, and that's why I keep asking about this whole cost benefit analysis, but that's a separate, because this is a port that's not within the discussion of this new regulation, except that if you build
it's a private port.
Yeah, it's a private port. But
and we should build more private ports. I don't see what the argument should be in favor of more than less.
Okay, but then so what do you say? What do you say? The cargo drives the port, right? It got to be some volume that needs to be moved for a port to be created to facilitate.
Correct.
So,
but then we have volume in iron ore deposits in the Western Cluster. So the calculations are clear that there is a need for, if we could build a big port in Cape Mount or Bomi, we'll probably double the quantity of iron ore that we can export a year. You follow not too long ago, there was this issue about the same Western Cluster in Bauchico, and the president put a ban on the use of the road and all that, you remember? The roads coming from the western region to the Freeport of Monrovia are impossible. They shouldn't be used to truck iron ore. We don't have any ice-rays to be able to railroad now into the port. The port itself, I mean, I wish I could pull up a picture of the port, the basin of the port. There's a lot of restriction on how much more you can do in the Port of Monrovia. Right now, one of the biggest issues that the port management, Douglas and his team, are grappling with is congestion in the port. And that's why I said earlier, I was surprised to know that they are on the drawing board and trying to find a solution. Some vessels, dry bulk vessels come into the port there with clinkers for cement, and they overstay the port probably 3-4 weeks. I've seen in the last few days an invoice, just demurrage. You know what demurrage is? Basically, if I'm a cargo owner and I charter a vessel to come to Liberia to drop my clinkers, which is the raw material for cement, right? I'm supposed to be able to come and berth and offload and get out. So I chartered the vessel to be in the port there for, say, 2 weeks to do that job. And the vessel come and has to stay 1 month. I've seen invoices for some companies that I wouldn't call their name, that their demurrage alone, in fact, their total cost of coming to Liberia, not the transportation, just the fees in the port was about $1 million just to come and dump their load. So there is congestion in the port. There are limitations there. So the need for more ports cannot be overstated. It's not a bad thing. It creates more economy, more jobs.
I'm sorry I don't have it handy, but we did do some area, and you know, this is not a one-time conversation, hopefully. We did do some area, you know, our drone company, like Piso Solutions, did do some area views of the Freeport. While we're talking, I will see if I can find some of them. But it seems like there's still room there, or maybe rehabilitation for a new port again. And the cost is not on us per se, and maybe it's for private purposes. It's not for commercial or public use. But
so how about what room in the port? So you can look at a clear area in the port, but most of those areas are being concessioned, right? If you take the APM terminal, 610 meter keys, 600, 610. Right after that is the LMC pier. That pier, if you look at it from the air, it looks like nothing happening there, but that pier is part of the Western Cluster concession. It has an owner. If you pass that, you come out to the NYC pier, it has an owner. You pass that, you come out to the old BMC pier, that's for China Union. It's somewhere in between there, you got probably 600 meters. I think that's what the Port Authority is trying to find a way to get a private partner to develop a new multi-purpose port. But on the whole, you don't have a lot of space in it. You don't have a lot of space to even hold cargo in the back. APMT is pushing the port to give them more grants for container yard, and saying they're not going to have it because you have a space limitation in the port. And I don't see the argument, strong, compelling argument against the building of new ports. You're just going to create more economy in Cape Mount and get a lot of people to get more job in the area. And that's also the same for going on the western, the southeastern area. I don't see why we can't build a port on the mouth of the Sesto River as a fishing port to take those vessels that we're giving license to that are not coming to our country. It doesn't have to go to the free port.
Oh wow! So, now, folks, I'm a little biased. Mama, you want to come in first before I go on?
Yeah, I was off. Can you hear me?
Then you're breaking up. Oh, your network looks bad.
Is it better?
Yeah, a little better.
Okay, if it's not better, let me get back to the computer and see.
Yeah,
but
please
if it's
do.
better, then I can continue.
Please do.
By the same logic, I was just reading a report about my young brother, Jaliba, from the Nokal, saying that it seemed to be that there's almost an approval to build a subsea a pipe to carry natural gas from Port Harcourt in Nigeria all the way up to Morocco. And Liberia is being considered as one of the takeoff points. If that were to happen, then Nokai would think about somewhere in Liberia, maybe Buchanan or somewhere, to do a port. So I mean, back to the question of one of the viewers, a billion port is not a bad thing. It just to create a lot more opportunities. Yeah.
Right. So again, and most likely it's not our national funds that will be used for it. And, you know, it will be an opportunity for development, for jobs. you know, and you can
Yeah,
build
the
a port
model.
and not have access to it. You will not have roads and stuff. So yes, you
Yeah.
know, to a large extent, there will be something. Cyrus, do you want to weigh in on this build port or no build port? Cyrus Johnson. Okay, so this individual is a young man I respect. Titus, he says the position of the port to be constructed at the estuary, you see the word the boy using, of the Pool River was well studied and well placed. The director of ports at NPA, Mr. Guisha, shared all the assessment documents with me when I was in Liberia. I must admit, this was a well studied process. Now, Titus is doing his PhD um, in um, in Morocco, in you know, climate change and all that other stuff. He works with us at Lake Piso Solutions, um, and his dissertation on sea erosion is, you know, far progressed. I respect his opinion and his, you know, assessment of what's happening at the port. Hopefully, this can be more public. I know it's a private port, but it's also a port that impacts Liberia, and Liberians should be more aware of this. So hopefully, these kind of situations, Sarah saying you have let the cat out of the bag, there can be more information about it shared. So these kind of discussions again can happen to the pros and cons of this port. How does it benefit us? What the volume of iron ore coming in? What is the environmental impact, you know, on Liberia with the construction of this new port? Um, and is there, you know, would they just be bringing their own stuff in at this port? Um, so yes, you know, I mean, we can understand
So
that's your
so
client.
so so they're not going to bring their stuff in. The port, every import goes to the free port of Monrovia. They're going to be exporting their iron ore, and
So it's an
while we have
export.
the yes, it's an export terminal. While we have the opportunity, maybe we should talk about it more because there is temptation to always look at private concession in our country in a negative light.
It
I'm
has
not
been
saying
negative
something
for the
like
most part. It has been negative
yeah.
for the most part. So you can't
I'm
blame
not.
people.
I'm not. However, I'm not saying that some of the terms may not seem to be in the people of Liberia favor. And you know, I really like for us to get everything. Let me tell you, those deals are based on concession agreements that are negotiated. There is an expectation that when you go to the IMCC, which is a government entity that negotiates on our behalf, you
So for
have your
people that
best people at
the
the table.
interministerial concession committee, right?
Correct. You have your
All
best
right.
people to the table. You have invited investors to come in your country to bring in millions of dollars to invest on on unlock some opportunities. You sit and negotiate the terms with them. After you negotiate the terms, they begin to operate, and then you spend the whole day saying that these people just here to see from us, see from us. That's very unfavorable and undesirable. If there are clear
But
cases where
Cyrus,
well,
if you look at these country, all right, go ahead,
if
finish,
there
go ahead.
are clear cases where these people are violating the concession agreement, yes, we should hold them accountable. Let me tell you what lessons I learned from this way in college at Cottonton. In 1985, LAMCO was redundant people and closing down. I am a child of LAMCO. Very unfavorable. Our parents were being relieved of their job. This was an unfavorable environment. So at Cottonton, we invited the LAMCO general manager, a German guy, I never forgot his name, called Brian Meyer, very young. They brought him in as a crisis manager. That means he came to close the company, right? You know, those kind of guys, they got strong heart. They're not, they're not
They're scared,
soft,
they're
right?
ruthless. Yeah.
Yeah. So he came over, we invited him to Cottonton, we want to give the guy some help, right? The guy came and gave us 25, 30-minute presentation on agriculture in Liberia. He didn't even talk about mines. He talked about our earth, where it's solid, where it needs fertilizer, it will be producing this and that, how it will make us very rich. And he closed on that, asked for question and answer. Dr. Joseph Seguano, who was one of our professors then, put his hand up to ask the first question. He said, what has LAMCO left for Liberia now that they are facing out? Great question, right? The guy said, well, for start, LAMCO left 2 cities for you, a rail line from Buchanan to Yikipa, educated thousands of people, many of whom are here at Cottonton, sent a lot of people overseas, good water system, electricity, training out your people into Western culture. You know, we grew up there, we're answering telephones when we're small, you know, good hospitals. He said, but assume Lamco didn't leave anything at all for you. I need not remind you that the concession agreement under which Lamco and all other companies operate is an act of the legislature. And he asked for more questions, and that place was dead quiet. What you are saying indirectly, well, if you have something that worth $100, and we sat to the table to negotiate, and you settle for me to buy it for you for 50 cents, the joke is on you, because we are a business entity. And that is our biggest problem today, is because sometimes we put out the people who are not best qualified to the table to negotiate for us.
But it seems like you're being contradictory. You said before that our qualified people can be at the table.
But we gotta be sending our qualified people.
No, we're not sending our qualified people. We got incompetent people at the table making these deals who are in team. My man, look at most of Sarah.
Institutions.
We
have the NIC.
Look at the Mo Stevens report. Look at the Mo Stevens report. 66 out of 68 concessions were illegal. Basically, not in the interest of our country.
What do you mean illegal? The concessions were signed.
They violated our national laws. They violated our laws. Don't tell me you never read the Mo Stevens report. Oh, you laughing? This is a serious thing. The people we put at the table are either compromised or incompetent most of the times with these concessions.
Then that's a problem, because we
are. Why do you think we're not benefiting?
We are what we are. The people we send to the table are our best people. Then maybe we need to hire consultants.
You're contradictory. You just said that the guy was basically saying you have something value $100. You go to there and decrease that value, depreciate it by nearly 1,000% to 50 cents, and you agree to that kind of deal for your people. Are you the best person to negotiate that deal for your people? No, you're not.
But you are expected to bring your best people over.
Thank you. Expected. But the expectation has not been a realization. In most cases, the expectation has not been a realization that we have seen in these concession. Let's try to fix it.
My point is the burden is not on the concessionaire. The burden is on us.
I don't disagree. I agree with that one.
Except where they're violating the agreed terms. Right. For you to go in the middle of the game and say, the thing we agree on, I think that's cheating.
But Sarah, even when we come to the agreed terms, our Bureau of Concessions, do they monitor these country plans? Do they monitor the time that certain implementations, certain corporate social responsibilities will be executed? I don't think they do.
I guess that's what it's supposed to do.
Come in. Yeah, I mean, we shifted now to the legacy issue of concession. I know from the broad context, but I think hopefully we can go back to the decentralization law.
We'll go back.
The point I want to make about the concession is you don't need most even report to even conclude about how we're being, in most cases, shortchanged. But the most even report in itself, I mean, it pointed to violations. It said the concession might have violated one or two of the laws. It didn't really say they were illegal. So there were some procurement requirements that one or two concessions did not meet 100%. There were some mining requirements that they did not meet 1 or 2% or 5%. So that's why the most even. But put most even aside. Just look at the concessions, see what they take, and see what we get. After over 20, 30 years, you will conclude that we're being shortchanged. To be more specific and direct, let's use the APM terminal as an example. The APM terminal, and maybe I'll break some news here. The APM terminal concession, even though has provision for it to be monitored has never been monitored until this year. From the time it was signed to this year, the APM terminal never been monitored. It was this.
And that responsibility is on us.
It's on us. It was this administration that said, no, wait, there's a provision here that these things are supposed to be monitored. Now they brought in the Bureau of Concession. They brought in auditors to review the APM terminal on what is supposed to. And we are talking about something around $9, $10, $12 million that APM terminal collected and is supposed to have shared with the government of Liberia. They did not share. And APM terminal is agreeing to say, yes, we agree that we're supposed to have contributed, we're supposed to share this. Then let's leave government side. This concession too, because that has been their punching point. Oh, you're supposed to monitor us. You're supposed to monitor us. We agree we're supposed to monitor you. But you too supposed to be a responsible investor.
Yes.
Why it is true that we're supposed to monitor you and enforce regulations, you too supposed to be a responsible investor.
What is a responsible investor?
A responsible investor, yes, I come in. A responsible investor is an investor who lives by the terms and conditions of his contract without enforcement. Now, for example, yes, for example, because the contract is signed, it says pay this amount of money every quarter, pay this amount of money every year, do this every 2 years, and you don't do it. And only when they ask you, say because you did not enforce it, that is irresponsible. Why it is true, it is recklessness. In 30 seconds.
Wait, Cyrus, let him finish. Cyrus, let him finish. Go ahead.
Let me finish, Cyrus. Why it is true, it is recklessness on the part of the government to not enforce the provisions of those regulations. It is also an irresponsible part of the investor to not honor what they sign up to and only waiting for somebody to enforce. Go to Mita. The Senator Nyan Twain has identified over 15 different requirements and conditions that APM, so everything in Mita is supposed to have met, but it did not meet. And they agree in plenary that yes, we're supposed to have done it, but we did not do it. And their argument is you did not enforce it. That's irresponsible. Why the school government is reckless? That's being irresponsible. So let's balance it.
Let me tell you something. Our relationship with these businesses are pure business relationship. If the expectation was that these people were going to be God, we're not going to put in safeguards. It's our responsibility to ensure that the terms of the agreement we make are followed. Right? Here in good faith, you expect that a private business will be able to follow the law. You yourself sitting out over there, you in America, when you're trying to file your taxes, you're caught all kind of corners.
According to the law. According to the law.
According to the law, right?
Yes.
My point, Ava, is that we need to mature ourselves enough to make sure that when we make laws, if they say that we have to monitor it, then we monitor it to make sure we can protect our interests. If they thought that these people were so pristine and so fair, then they will not put a provision to be able to monitor them. So let's pass that. Let's go to the deregulation issue and see.
No. Decentralization, not deregulation.
Decentralization. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, I don't know. I think we never really got to. Oh, Eugene, your knee? Do you mind Dulake?
No.
Oh no, like a comment that Dulake comment. All right. So Cyrus, we have this Decentralization Act. Decentralization and Modernization Act, right? What's your high-level perspective of this act?
My thinking, and that's why I started earlier to say that, look, I know the models can work if it is perfected, it's done properly. So decentralization probably falls in line with what the president is championing in the Local Government Act to be able to push more resources and governance to the people. We have 4 seaports right now. 2 of the seaports are active. If you look at the table of vessel,
Monrovia and Buchanan, right?
Correct. The other seaports are barely functioning. One of the things that looking at this decentralization that encourages me that it probably is something we should try is that for these ports to operate, they need some creativity, they need some attention and time. That these ports are overseen by one institution, the Port Authority, that is sitting in the free port, where there are other loose areas of revenue coming. They are so far away from the other ports that they may not grasp the opportunity, or there's no pressure on them to be able to make those ports work. So for me, in that sense alone, it is a good idea if those ports have some free hand to see what value they can bring. Those are assets that we have set over there, and no port is a waste. I have sat with some guys from the Port of St. Pedro not too long ago who said they've been coming to Monrovia trying to sit with authorities to leverage the Port of Harper because they are overloaded at St. Pedro, and they have never gotten a chance to have a discussion, right?
That was a fact. I had discussion with somebody from that area who got interest too.
I can understand that. Because, I mean, the guys in Monrovia, guys are easy picking going on, so they don't have to sweat too much about what's happening in Maryland. So if we decentralize and give autonomy to those ports, and I say we have to do it well, it will give the latitude to the leaders there to be able to make value out of those ports and create value for those regions. The opportunity, there are opportunities there that can be unlocked. It requires real attention placed to it. And I don't think we can get our attention in the current centralized port system that we have. Now, if you go into the law itself, now there's an issue that one major issue that I have with it that I looked at is the way the board is constituted. The board is a 21-man board. It's a board for all the 4 ports. If you say you are making the ports independent and autonomous, they may have to compete. The board is a part of the port institution. How do they compete when you got one board that overseeing all 4 ports? And each port manager or general manager is on that board. So I think, if anything, they should create individual boards for each port, and those board members should be selected from inside the region where the port is. The other good thing is, for example, we're talking about Bachico. Bachico has an agreement with the Port Authority, by extension, the Free Port of Monrovia. Because they're in Bomi, if that law is passed, technically now, they will be relating now to the people of Bomi. That means they will have to create some kind of animal in Bomi that port relate to and pay their fees, I think 10% of their gross revenue to Bomi, or whether in the case of private company, whether it is their leases, they will pay it to Bomi. If that dry port in Nima comes out, it will be the port of Nima. I mean, so help me God, a port of Ganta, and brings value to that area. And so on that basics alone, I think it's not a bad thing. It just has to be structured properly. It has to be manned properly to people who know how to be able to run and manage port. That is not to say that the current system we have with the National Port Authority is a bad thing. No.
Okay. Cyrus, you want to come in before Mame comes in on a high level of this port?
Yeah, I think I do agree with Mr. Gray's point. The ports, the bill to have the decentralized ports, I think it's a good idea. But what I think needs to be done, like he said, it has to be done well. This bill has some issues that have to be addressed. If you look at the 3 other ports, let's say 2 aside from, I would say 3, because even Buchanan, the Buchanan port, if you look at the general structure of the Buchanan port as it is, does not meet international standard. Why? It's because it is being controlled by the Port of Monrovia. You have a centralized system where all the activities, what happens in Buchanan, Sino, and Maryland, are controlled from Monrovia for more than half a century, and it has been like this. And it has caused these 3 ports to have poor infrastructure and poor services. There are key elements when it comes to ports functioning well. You have one very important element is the security of the port. Buchanan Port operates, I understand to be correct, as security level 1. And if you look at the vessels that berth at Buchanan Port, most times you realize that the owners of these vessels will always complain before they leave the port of Buchanan. They will encounter too many different issues, and one of such issues is the fact that there will always be um, issue with the vessel, physical structure of the vessel, because you do not have sufficient safeguard to ensure that the vessel leaves the way it came. Is it because the port is not generating revenue? No, the port is generating revenue, but the finances go directly to Monrovia. And when requests are made to ensure that these things I put in place to prevent some of these complaints coming from the ship owners, it falls on deaf ears. If you go to Sino, for example, Sino port is even worse. Sino, if the current uh, means for bringing in vessel from Anchorage to berth is Kino. They use Kino,
No tugboats.
no tugboat. And the current master, the current tug master that is there, the man is old.
Harbor
And when
Master.
when the tide rises, when the old man goes to Anchorage, when he goes to Anchorage, he uses this steam rope. It is life threat. It's risky. And for years they have cried on Monrovia. Look, we need to. And currently there are two tugboats that are non-functional in Sino. They've been there for, and
Sydney.
they were very good. When those talks were taken to Sino, they were very good. Guess what? Why those talks are still packed up to present? Battery. They had issue with battery. They made requests to Monrovia, and nobody paid attention. Even though Sino is generating revenue that is going directly to Monrovia, as expensive as these talks are, when the battery malfunction, they made a request. Monrovia office did not do anything. These are some of the reasons that people are saying, look, I think it is time that we allow these ports to be up, because like my big brother said, it expands the local revenue, and it enables these counties to even develop, and it creates job. Maryland is the same thing. You talk about San Pedro Port that has been overwhelmed. They've expressed interest in doing business with Liberia, because most of these businesses shifted to Maryland Port will raise revenue for our local economy. Our people have failed to listen, to address, and to form this partnership. So I think when this bill is crafted properly, the idea will be a good one, because it is going to be very helpful to our local economy. We just need to do it in a way that will be reflective of all of the current day realities.
Thank you.
Alva, let me add something quick before we move to you and our other distinguished panelists. I'll give you an
Okay.
example in the Port of Buchanan. One of the in 2010, before the APMT concession,
Right.
almost half of the Freeport of Monrovia revenue came from marine services, meaning storage, pilotage into the port. Well, against most argument, we gave that to APM terminal, but we gave it to them conditionally. The argument that was made then, that was pushed by Richard Talbot and others, was that the port did not have the capacity to perform it. And they picked that argument from a report that I did when I did an assessment of marine services. I suggested to the managing director that, look, The 2 tugboats we have, they're leaking. We need staff training for our people. The port not ready, but they could be ready within 90 days, because once they sign in the agreement, we need 90 days. But Richard Tower made the argument to the president then that I say that the port was not ready without putting the 90 days. All right. So when we went back to negotiation, I argued that, well, since the argument is that the port is not ready, then let's make it conditional that 5 years into the concession, the port will have the right to take marine services back. Remember, I said marine service accounted for 50%. Now it counts for even more. If you think about one ship, Semenko ship, paying almost $300,000 for demurrage, guess what? We're in the 14th year of the concession. The port has not made herself ready yet to take marine services. Now, because Marine Service Department will also shut down, for example, in Buchanan, ArcelorMittal hires her own marine services company in the Port of Buchanan. And the port doesn't make a dime out of that, even though they are making that huge revenue in the port property, even in the private basin, when the port is the one who should be providing that. So if the Port of Buchanan, for example, was standing alone, these would be opportunities that they can unlock. Now, if ArcelorMittal needs to hire a private company to do marine services, and the right to do marine services is with the Port of Buchanan, what is there to stop the Port of Buchanan from hiring a qualified company and taking a part of the revenue too? I mean, there are millions of dollars that are going to lose, all because we have a centralized authority sitting in the Freeport of Monrovia, and there are other low-hanging income streams that they are getting that does not require them to think too much outside the box. And that's just to restate what I've said earlier. And I think for that, it augur well for us looking at the possibility of actually getting those posts to stand alone if they're well structured.
I like the if they are well structured. Mame, you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm muted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Like I said before, I have a very strong but slightly different view from Cyrus, from the two Cyrus. I know they put people let it Cyrus need. But this is my view. Let's go back to acknowledge that the Port of Buchanan, the Port of Sino, the Port of Maryland, and the Port of Monrovia were working effectively. They were efficient. They were providing good services. Liberia was not just a gateway port. We were providing transshipment services to part of Guinea and part of Abidjan. All these ports were working effectively. They were not working effectively because they were independent or autonomous. So something happened. Why they're not working effectively today? It is that thing we need to solve. So from my training, each time you have problem, you go back and understand how was it before? How is it now and what caused it? What are the underlying factors? They were working good under the MPA. Why are they not working now? Sarah hinted once, he said, ports follow cargo. That's Sarah's. Port follows cargo. I will add to that, cargo follows economic activities. So economic activities in those areas are not compared to Buchanan and Monrovia. That's why you see the vessels call to Monrovia, and the top port figures for Monrovia and Buchanan are far triple what happening in Sino and Maryland. Because, like Sarah said, ports follow cargo.
Well,
And
can I ask you if you think an economic opportunity can be created that can drive that reverse, where the activity requires that a port is present in that area. For example, like he was talking about the folks in Ivory Coast needing, additional support they can handle, because he's not the first person I've heard that from. I've heard that from somebody else who wanted to try to invest in that port in Harper.
Ava, all those things are gossip. The person who you say wanted to invest in port, ask them to send you any correspondence that they share with the government of Liberia about their interest in investing in the ports. The San Pedro, that's government. So a government institution, a government port in Ivory Coast wants to invest in a government port in Liberia, ask them for any correspondence. That just talk.
No. I'm not
talk.
talking about Sempe. I'm talking about a Liberian who has some connection with people with foreign direct investment, who believes there's a huge opportunity. Who believes
that Liberian? Yeah, ask that Liberian.
I don't believe he has formally communicated with the NPA. But go ahead, make a point. I just want to say that possibility exists.
So yes, so ask the Liberian. Since you get so much interest in an investment, and you this person with foreign direct investment, the first thing you do is to do an expression of interest. You write formally.
Agree.
I have not seen any communication. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I have not seen, I've made contact with people in the port sector. They say, all the things people saying, we don't have communication. Look, what the people name? HPX. When HPX were coming, long before they knew that port-related issues would have been there, they wrote formally to the NPA and expressed interest, formal expression of interest. It's on their record. This San Pedro team people, they're talking like gossip. You ask them for letter, formal communication, they don't share it. Private people say, oh, we want to invest in the port, we get money, but nobody talking to us. Ask them whether they provide official interest. You will not see one, because I have asked consistently, I have not seen one. But let's go to the core issue about decentralization.
Sure.
You have a perennial problem of lack of investment in the port. If you break them apart, you are only breaking apart the problem of lack of investment, you're not solving it. You have the perennial problem of people refusing to use capacity that is existing. If you break down the port, you're only breaking down that problem, you're not solving it.
And you're bringing more incompetent people in, right?
You're bringing more, yes. You're just breaking apart the problem in bits and pieces, and you're not solving the problem. And to tell you that, go to the law that they pass. So you say you want the port to be independent. You pass a law. The current NPA law says all powers and authorities of the port are vested in the board of the National Port Authority. That's the current law. You pass a law. You went all around and shouted around, telling the people, want decentralize the port, want make your port independent, it will give you job. You put the people in habit. Then you pass a law that says all powers of the 4 ports are vested in the board of the port authorities. You get me? You following my trend?
That's highly political, but go ahead.
The existing law says all powers invested in the National Port Authorities and its board. You say that's bad, you don't want it, you want all the ports to be independent, to stand on their own. Then you pass a law that says all powers of each port are vested in a 24-man board. They will set policies and regulation for those ports. You're not changing anything. The only thing you're doing is you're dismantling the NPA, and that is what we are opposed to. We are opposed to dismantling the NPA and creating a similar structure and just calling it board of directors of the port authorities instead of the National Port Authorities. Let's come to the issue about some form of autonomy. I call for, instead of this big thing about autonomy, I call for empowerment of the port. How do you do that? The ports be allowed either by a board resolution from the NPA or by an amendment to the NPA Act that allows each of the ports to develop their own budget, their own work plan, their own strategy, and submit it to the National Port Authority. The National Port Authority approves it, and they have that leverage to execute their budget and report. The reason why that is important, to have a unified structure leading the port sector is for investment purposes.
What about competition? Because they can start competing against each other, right? Because they will be like individual businesses, because they are international related. Is that positive?
It's positive, and I will come and like I said from the beginning, each time I talk about it, I will say, how is it done in other places and how are we doing it here? So let me learn on that one first. So amend the NPA. Don't dismantle the NPA. Don't dissolve it and create a similar structure. Amend the NPA Act. Maintain a national port authority. These ports empower them to develop their own budget, to develop their own activities plan. And those activity plans, once approved by the board of the National Port Authority, they go on and execute. Set threshold.
But why is that? Hold on 1 second. Seriously, let me ask you, why is that not happening right now? Is there an overarching National Port Authority strategic plan for the next 5 years that incorporate the sub-strategic plans of each of these other 3 ports that are existing out there? Is there something like that exist?
We have a problem that we're trying to solve. The problem is these ports, and the way people want to solve the problem is to dismantle the NPA. I am saying the way to solve the problem is not to dismantle the NPA, is to amend the NPA Act and give some form of empowerment to the local port to design their own budget, get approval. They can enter into procurement activities on their own at certain threshold. They can make administrative decisions at certain threshold. Because
for my analysis, I'm in line with that particular one, but go ahead. I will break down where I mean when I say I'm in line.
Do not dissolve the port. So what that means is, if somebody wants to invest in port, they don't have to be running. You go to Nima Port Authority, one port there. You have to go do your own arrangement. You come back to Buchanan Port, your own, because all these ports are one way or the other connected. One vessel leaving from one port to another, or one other service from one port to another, you have to go to this other port, you negotiate separately. You come to the other one, negotiate separately. You come to the other one, negotiate. We need a one-stop shop. The last option, the last thing I will talk about is how is it done in other places, and it is working. The Massa Maroc that the brother spoke about, you go in Morocco, they got over 25, 30 ports under the authority of the National Port Authority in Morocco. You go Senegal, similar thing. You go Ghana, similar thing. You go Sierra Leone, similar thing. There are few exceptions, like Abidjan, who have 2 ports that are separate. But the rule of thumb and the practice in Africa is most places, the port authority have control over these ports, but these ports have some level of empowerment to make administrative, financial, and operational decisions. Instead of dismantling the NPA, maintain the NPA and empower local ports. That would be my suggestion on this issue. Do not dismantle NPA, because in essence, the call you're making is not being addressed by the law. You still establish a body and you say all powers and authorities of all the ports are vested in that body. It is the same thing that NPA is using today. So that has not changed by the law. What we need to change by the law is amend the NPA Act and empower these regional ports to make some form of administrative and financial and operational decision with the operations of the NPA existing and not being dissolved.
And I'm for the most part aligned with that. You know, it's like the law can be strengthened in terms of the National Port Authority. The oversight can additionally be strengthened. What do we have the legislature for? You know, there are so many opportunities when it comes to ports, and there are people, I know you say you haven't seen it, but there are people out there, and I'm sure there have been overtures made to our National Port Authority, but we know the situation And there's not just this current leadership, the previous leadership that people have reached out to with interest in new ports or some port operations, enhancing what currently exists. But because whatever rubbing hand or changing, um, you know, money changing hands or whatever, it doesn't happen.
Let me
But
tell you something, Avan.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Look, go ahead, finish laying your thought there. I will give you information.
Okay. My thought is the concept of the NPA is an authority. Okay, it has that oversight of these different operations, and I think it should hold that oversight role and let it should be separated from the Freeport of Monrovia. Let the ports run themselves along the lines of what you're talking. Each of them have their strategic plan. Each of them representation on the board. Each of them being able to carry out financial operations. Each of them being able to attract investors. Okay, each of them be able to develop the surrounding investment, because there's a lot of land, there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of port operations, and I'm sure Cyrus can relate to this because that's his area. But to just get four separate, decentralization come in many forms. We talk about capacity. There's a good question here. We talk about capacity of our people, and Cyrus said there about like 33, 35 of them who have graduated from, the maritime universities with, advanced degrees and everything. But if we look at the structure of ports, the involvement of these people, what percentage of them working with maritime, what percentage of them working with the port, what percentage of them are not really involved in these activities? I mean, even the creation of this law, the lack of input of the expertise that we have on the ground, or even in the diaspora, to be involved in these discussions is limited. So this question that Dr. Talon Duako is asking, how do we get this discussion the way it needs to be heard, is critical. This think tank brainstorming and something is something that we really need to build up. The people who understand these things, the different experts in different areas need to come to the table. But I'm allowing you. All I'm saying is, the individual ports and the whole decentralization concept of how the people in that area, how that particular county benefits, need to be structured more. We need to do a cost benefit analysis of each of these ports to see the real potential, to understand how those particular areas will benefit. What does it cost us to set up 4 new structures across these ports, as opposed to strengthening and enhancing the current capacity of the existing ports? So all of these things are things that need to be, fleshed out and discussed more, rather than limited to a few people who may not have the expert knowledge to really make these decisions and, take it to the legislature, sign a bill, and it becomes, what the decision is when it's not in the best interest of our people.
However, because of the economic activities in Monrovia and the top port figures for Monrovia, I mean the quantity of things coming to Monrovia, if you invested 250 million, you will potentially get your return, because the model is build, operate, and transfer.
So you want to build, let me move the comment. It costing too much inside.
So the build, operate, and transfer, you build it, you operate, you make your money, you make profit, then you transfer it over to government. Somebody reached out at a certain point in time and said they had interest in Sino Pool. That one, I mean, I spoke to them. They did a model. He said, if we invested this amount of money, we need up to 100 years concession.
To get the required. Oh, wow. Okay.
Because the projection is in the next, there's no major economic activity. So you anchor it on when economic activities will start coming, for the port to be active and vibrant, because you're depending on ship coming to make your money back. So they estimating that model that we need up to 100 years or 75 years.
That sounds like a floor model.
Exactly. Exactly. So say, man, that thing, and I want to go discuss it with anybody. LIBERIA get a law now, concession can part 25 years. So that thing you're talking about your 100 year carry. Yeah, carry on asa.
If by year
part of
10, 12, you can really turn over and get returns, then you got problems.
Yeah.
You're not bankable.
So to conclude, for the others to come in, there are fundamental problems for which these ports are not operating the way they were operating before. Before today, the ports were operating effectively and efficiently.
Is there really data to show the effectiveness of those ports? Is there really? I mean, we know those ports existed. We know ships were coming in and stuff. But is there data? Because the way you're touting the effectiveness of those ports, it sounds like they were really successful.
Oh yes, Ava, I can find numbers and share to you. Liberia
Okay.
were not only just people from Guinea were used.
I know we're utilizing transshipment and other stuff here. I mean, I understand all of that, but the level you're talking about, it sounds like it was really efficient and really doing well.
I mean, compared to what you have today.
Okay.
Compared to what you have today, that you complaining you want to change, we all complain and say, no, the way you're looking now is not good. But my point is, it was working good before. It's not working today. And we were working good before, they were not separated. So it means separation is not the solution. It's not addressing the root cause of the problem. So let's go to the root cause and solve the root cause of lack of investment in the port. 1, 2, underutilization of capacities, import management and administration, ensuring effective legislative oversight. You can separate all the ports. If you don't invest in the ports, if you don't use the capacity, if the legislature not doing their job and only going to the port to go take money from them and ask them to put their supporter on the payroll, those ports will still not be effective. So let's solve the root cause.
There's also some talk about these ports supposedly bringing in huge monies in terms of who will operate them, because now with this port authority, the new full port authority is being controlled basically by the legislative or people right in the county. They have that opportunity. Huh?
They wrote it in the law. They say the legislative caucus must appoint, must send name to the president. The president must appoint from that name. Because they want
to control it. It's purely political.
Capture.
Yes, that's my problem with the bill. It's purely political. Okay, I'm all for decentralization because it can definitely be a transformation for those local areas. But this particular thing, I don't think is thought through. The actual implementation of it, no cost benefit analysis has been done. Then they talk about it being a modernization act. When I see modernization, I think technology, I think capacity, I think job creation. I see automation. I'm talking about digital tracking system. I'm talking about inclusion of the green and now the blue economy into that. All of that is absent in this. So what is the system that's really being built, and the people that will be able to man this? I know Sarah said there's competent people around. I'm sure at the highest level we can find them. But what about all those other functions that are there? Do we have trained people? This stuff has to be faced and really thought about to create 4 new bureaucracies around existing bureaucracy and then dismantling the National Port Authority. So at this point, I don't think there has been enough conversation held with regards to this decentralization thing. And the president needs to step back and probably send it back again for more conversations to be had before they can make a decision on before the executive can sign this kind of bill. I mean, look, the NPA can be there. There can be regional port management, and they can be a sub business unit that has its own strategic plan, that can come and roll up to the National Port Authority. And now the Port Authority can actually serve as an authority that can regulate these 4 ports under it, So until I can see like some kind of modernized roadmap about, what the structure will be, what the economic aspect of this would be, what the environmental aspect would be, what the potential public-private partnerships that could come out of this, in terms of investors and stuff, I'm not convinced. But Cyrus, you've been silent for a while. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I've been listening to you guys.
And Cyrus, when you please, just give us some background. Where in Africa, besides what we see in Abidjan I think Lomé get one port and one other small fishing pier. Where is the dominant view coming from that put in each place should be separated? I have not seen it.
So let me speak to that. But first, that issue you guys are flagging about the legislature apparently trying to take control. If you read the law, you got a 21-man board, and it says that the legislature will recommend 5 persons, out of which the president will appoint 2 on the board. So that 2 persons the legislature appointing. I don't think that's an issue.
From each county. From each county.
No. And that's where you gotta listen to somebody talk about the law and they gave another impression until I read it. There's only one board, which is a problem. There's only one board made of 21 persons. And in that 21 person, the legislature would nominate 5 persons, out of which to recommend 5 persons to the president, and the president will select 2. And those 2 will form part of the 21-member board. My concern about that is
Sarah, let's correct that. If you get the law, let's correct that.
Go to the law.
The legislative caucus of each county will recommend 5.
Go to the law.
Yeah, let's find the law. Good. The board, listen now, the board of the, let me share it. Then we can go through it together.
Yeah.
Share screen, window. Okay, let me move this. And let me zoom this. Okay. So the board of the National Port Authorities, Section 55 of the amended Public Authorities Law of the Legislature, establishing a board of the National Port Authority is hereby amended, and the same is now established and shall be the National Ports Authorities Board. All powers of the ports of Monrovia, Buchanan, Greenville, and Harper, and ports established hereafter shall be vested in the National Ports Authority Board consisting of 21 members. So Cyrus is right. This board,
not 21. That mistake me.
21. If you
check
count
it,
it's 21. Listen, let's go through it. This shall include 1, the Minister of Commerce, Minister of Transportation, Minister of Finance and Development Planning. They are ex officio, they are not actual members, right? B, the managing directors of the ports of Monrovia, Buchanan, Greenville, and Harper. There are 4 people. 5 members at large appointed by the president. That's 9. 8 members, 2 members for each of the host counties. That's 17. 4 representatives of a cross section of users of ports in Liberia, who shall be nominated by the respective groups. How they come up to 4, I don't know. That's 21. So that's 21 people. And except for the ex-official members and the managing director, the members of the board shall be appointed each for a period of 3 years. So that's 21 people. So basically, the board of the NPA is being dismantled, and this is becoming a new board. And that's where
here's my question.
Charles, you on the floor. Go ahead. Yeah.
It appears to me that this law is saying there is only one board for those 4 ports, correct?
Yes.
And that is the problem. Because if those 4 ports are going to be independent and competing ports, the board is a part of the port authority. How do you each port should have its own board?
And that's no, I don't necessarily think so. You really think we need 4 boards?
Yeah, but if you got a regulatory authority you're creating already, so the port has.
For me, I don't think you Sarah, do you think we need a regulatory authority for fisheries? Do you think we need a regular authority for the fisheries?
What do you mean fisheries? You got an NAFA is a regulatory authority for fisheries.
Exactly. So the NPA should be the regulatory authority.
But the NPA is also an operator. So
but that's why I said earlier we need to shift. Let the ports operate independently with the NPA being over there as that structure.
Yeah, what we have right now, everything that you guys, both of you were saying, is what we have right now. It's not working. You have the National Port Authority as the overarching authority for ports, for existing ports, the right to create ports, and it's not working. We have dormant ports out there. Okay, we say that the ports were
So
viable
is it
before.
the law not working, or is it the people they put in these positions not working? Which one is it?
Well, the very structure we have not working. We can decipher it to find out why. But
I think that
if you,
that needs to precede. That needs to precede a new law. What are a SWOT analysis of the port?
I agree. Maybe that's one way to do it. Another way to just be this paradigms, because guess what? They put a Sano then get defunctional just merely because of bad management. I mean, the big business in that put was logs. We have a policy as a government, sign on some arrangement with the Norwegians that we shouldn't cut enough of our trees. So that industry is seriously undermined. So we're not exporting a lot, same for Harper. But we have an opportunity. Even though the Russians have walked out of the concession, Aputu is one of the largest remaining deposits in our country. So from a national policy perspective, if we can lift that concession agreement out, we'll be lifting also the port of Greenville. And
Right.
if you had an independent port over there, the lobby from the local level to get that done will be stronger than a national port authority that also already got low-hanging fruits in Monrovia and they don't have to sweat about it. And that's the point I'm making. And that could apply to anything. You can induce also demand to the ports. I've always said this. We have 70,000 nautical miles of marine resources sitting there in the water. We have examples before the war, we had the largest fishing company on the continent, and that resource is still locked. The reason it's locked is because we need to take care of the shore side. We need to build a fishing port and fish processing facility at scale so that we can require NAFA to tell those vessels that she's licensing that the only way we can license you if you process your fish at this port in Rivercess or wherever you built it. You just build another port and made it viable. That thinking has to come from the port authority.
I absolutely agree with that.
Related agency. If you force Rivercess people to be by themselves, they might be able to think that up faster than the port authority in Monrovia that are already receiving money from other low-hanging fruits. And that's really my point. It's not to say one is out of better, but in the independence of the individual ports, I think we have a lot more opportunities than what we are doing now.
So meaning when the port is established in Cape Mount, we have a port authority there with a board. When it's established in Rivercess, we have a port authority there with a board. When it's established
that's not what we have.
Lima,
That's not what we have, but that's what I would prefer. What we have now is that when you have a port established in Cape Mount, they will fall under the same board. Maybe they will add some more people from Cape Mount on the board. I would prefer those ports become independent. And here's the reason. I was just mentioning about the concentration of a dry bulk in iron ore in the Western cluster. Most of those resources are locked. People have been given concession. They haven't moved any iron ore because there's no outlet to get the iron ore out. Now, there may be a whole lot of bureaucracy around it or the process of getting into the free port with iron ore, loads of iron ore. Maybe if you got a port of rubber sports, one of the officials in the port gave me the name of a place in Cape Mount that they already demarcated that has deep water that could be made into a port. The opportunity is clear. You could source private capital without too much hustle, too much bureaucracy as the port authority of that county, and build a port over there just to offshoot your iron ore. And you have created a whole lot of other value. And the more such ports you create, the more difficult it will be for a central authority because it will increase more bureaucracy. Think about what we have right now. There are a whole lot of opportunities out there. We are not leveraging it because the guys in the port authority seem to be overloaded already with what they have. So I don't see the hurt if we can think wisely, create independence across our coastline for additional ports that will be managed properly. I don't see that there's no downside to it.
let me ask you a question, Cyrus. You know, when we do this policy, when we do the policy work, we go back and ask, where are the places this model you're talking about working? I know in Morocco, where Tanja Med is the best port in Africa. And I think the 4th or the 9th best port in the world. The port authority there.
You know why that is? You know why that is?
I come in.
Let me
Master,
ask you. You know what it is? Because 90% of the senior management in those ports are trained in the work they're doing.
okay, I come into that. And my point is separating the port and just say, okay, grandkid man have your port doesn't solve the problem of the underutilization of capacity. But let me come to the point you just separating the problem. If you say, kid man have your port, and those who making decision are still not looking into using best minds, it doesn't solve the problem. It just make the problem compound, complex, and spread across the entire country. You're not solving the problem, you are breaking the problem apart and leaving them unsolved. So in Morocco that I'm talking about, the Port Authority is managing over 25 ports. They are working well. Cohesiveness. In Nigeria, they are working well. In Ghana, they are working well. In Sierra Leone, they are working well. In most port countries, in South Africa, all the ports are under the Port Authority. They are working well, except few exceptions, like what the place name, Abidjan and one other places, two other places. The best practice, dominant best practice.
Here in Liberia, all the ports are under the Port Authority. Are they working well? I mean, if we could follow
but they are not working well. Yes, they are not working well, not because they are not independent. They are not working well because for several reasons. So let's solve the reasons. That's my point.
What are the reasons?
One,
what are
yes, one, underutilization of capacity. There are people
I don't know what you mean by that.
Yes, let me tell you. You say, yeah, you have people who do maritime studies, people who do business, who supposed to business manage, people who supposed to be running the port as business. But
so the people who there now don't have the skill. I mean, I just
come again.
No, but just funding. Are you saying that they don't have the skills?
Let me learn. I trust. I don't mix my voice on this. I trust Duclais' ability in business development. That's what he did for himself as an individual, and that's what he's trying to do at the port. And he was being had in less than 14 months. He was able to bring in over $250 million interest to expand the port of Monrovia, and even want to do it in Buchanan. That is fair. And I think that's why bringing all the confusion about separating the port. From Ellington to Weirtown, 12, 18 years, they have not been able to bring in this kind of potential investment. In less than 18 months, this kind of investment is coming, and that's where all the fight is about. But let's go to the core issue about what are the fundamental problems. Underutilization of capacity is one. Yes, Duclais could be there, he's doing well, but go to all the other ports. Even at the MPA, go to other managerial roles. If a politician, you just lost an electoral election, you may be manager for the port of Buchanan, that accommodation.
Yeah, that political accommodation. And somebody mentioned that in the chat. That happens all the time. What he said? That was so no political reward in heaven. So as a result, they appoint anyone to any position to reward them.
At the port of Monrovia, there are people in positions where they are just there because one politician, one senator, one representative, and put my man there. And you, for political experience, you have to accept and put the person there.
Do you think, you gotta be realistic? Our country is highly politically sensitive, right? One of the things that decentralizing the port will do will force the management to seek private capital. And private capital, we don't have the capacity, apart from politics, whatever, we don't have the capacity all across finances. In many cases, the human capacity to really do some of these mighty things that need to be done to get our ports working for us.
So why don't we solve that capacity problem?
Oh, well, that's a long-term solution, but we need to outsource the ports. If they're independent, it will be easier to do deals.
Outsourcing the ports different from creating 4 new structures.
So how have we not outsourced it now under the structure? I mean, if you take a port that is a barren port like Greenville or Harper and create a management there, the only way they will be able to grow that port is to find technical and financial partners. So they will be forced to do that.
Let me tell Sarah something.
Rather than sitting on what we have now, because
Sarah, let me tell you something.
This structure,
Sarah, you're talking about medium-term solution, short-term solution about outsourcing the port to attract private investment. You just telling me In less than 18 months, without breaking the port apart, Dukla is able to attract a potential 250 million for both Monrovia and Buchanan ports without breaking the port apart. That's solving the problem of investment. That's solving the problem of investment. Then we'll move to the next stage of capacity utilization. So I'm saying you don't have to break the port apart to solve the problem. And breaking it apart doesn't solve the problem. In less than 18 months, 250 million potential investment. You want another consultant there working to see how Massa Maro can take over both Buchanan and Monrovia. In less than 18 months, without the port being broken apart, private investors are already coming in. If you give it additional 18 months.
So your argument is that that's the model that we're pursuing is going to work, right?
My model is maintain the MPA, amend the MPA Act, give some level of financial, operational, and administrative empowerment to the local ports so that they be able to make decisions more faster and have some more control over the decisions they make. But the port authority should not be dismantled. It doesn't solve the problem.
Well, those are good points. I hope, those kind of arguments can be entertained at the policy making level. Because my thing is that we have a potential, huge potential that are locked in the fact that these major public assets and resources are not being leveraged sufficiently. If disruption will be able to create the space, then let's do it. Or else, if we can fix the port as it is, then let's start having that argument, because the old model has not worked for us. No serious port city is poor.
Yeah, and I don't know about an investor who will say, I want to invest in Sino or I want to invest in Maryland, but I'm holding back my investment until Maryland can be independent before I can invest.
Well, you can bundle the investment. Part of the viability of the port is creating scale, critical mass, and that kind of decision can be made by if you got few people in the room.
And look, I mean, right now the port has a proposal out. Let me share it. Looking for a business and investment strategy advisor. So the whole issue of the RFP.
I mean, you can give it to Dukla here and team. They got some of the dots in order.
Yeah,
whether that addresses the overarching issue or the kind of lack of essential investment in the port system that we have.
And look who they're trying to attract. They're trying to attract investment from the Middle East and Southern Asia countries. So it's not just about Freeport Monrovia. I don't think that's what they're looking at. They're looking at being active and attracting, and foreign direct investment into our port structure. So, I mean, I think it's about strengthening what we have now. I don't think it's about, having full separate ports that are autonomous. There need to be some level of regulation, and then this new board, again, if they can separate the operation of the free port from the National Port Authority, where the authority is there to regulate, to monitor, to ensure that standards are being maintained and everything in collaboration with the Maritime Authority, that's fine for me. So
currently you have the manager at the Freeport, you have the manager at Buchanan, you have the manager at Sano, you have the manager at Greenville, and you have the MPE.
Correct.
That's how it is.
That's the old model, yeah.
Yeah, but that model needs to be strengthened, though. That is, like you said, something is not working. Is it the personnel? We need to do that deep dive in terms of the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats that exist with our port for us to be able to make the decision. To me, this decentralization stuff is, I don't know what the current decentralization elements are in terms of revenue sharing with the local community, in terms of participation, in terms of, local content with regards to jobs and stuff like that, right? But if those things could be expanded and attractive partners found for these different ports. And like Sarah said, which I totally agree with, the inducement of economic opportunities in these areas, whether it's the Putu Mountain, whether it's Maryland, interacting with San Pedro to see if we can relieve some of them, whether it's transshipment opportunities, creating these opportunities and being innovative in terms of having a strong vision of where our port sector is going will make a major difference. But to just, pass a law and say you want to decentralize and this the methodology for decentralization, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, Abba, it would be good to invite the architects of the law, the representative for Austin Taylor and the counterparts like General Sigwe in the Senate, so that they can give the logic behind the law. I mean, what
Sorry, if you can give us the contact, if you can give us the contact of those individuals, we'll definitely do that.
I can do that. What people like me can speak to will be what are the efficacies. In both cases, there are pros and cons.
I totally agree. It's about implementation. I want to know the cost benefit analysis. What does it cost? What's the current cost now for those operations? What is the future cost, and what are the future benefits in terms of what new they will be bringing from this perspective? Those are important things. So, I really appreciate. Yeah, go ahead.
I will give you the guy's contact, and I informed Honorable Austin Taylor before the program. He said he was going to be watching, so more than likely he's watching. Okay. But one of the things that I've noticed in dealing with our systems, and I've worked mostly in the private sector dealing with the ports here. I like that. I mean, I'm okay with that. We have leadership issues. Honorable Taylor, for example, she had no speaking relationship with two of her deputies. Today, I understand that the managing director does not have a relationship with the head of the port of Buchanan. I don't know that with the rest. I can see how you can run an integrated system when even the leaders cannot even communicate. So all those things are in my mind, some of the factors that are pushing to breaking these institutions into smaller, manageable pieces, so that each piece can be managed and held accountable for itself. I'll tell you a joke. I mean, I'm consulting for the port during the ABM terminal time. I want to walk to the deputy for administration and get some background on how have you done contract. The guy was there when China Union came and said, look, we want to get our place. Simenco is putting their clinkers in the warehouse, and according to the MDA, we're supposed to take over. So they asked me, I said, no, even though in the concession, but it has to be a port operating agreement between the port and China Union, right? So, well, in my mind, I said, well, what was it like? Because Bond Mines owned that facility. So let's go back to the record and see how Bond Mines dealt with the port. So I go to the deputy for administration, Kaya Kamo. He gives me a cup of coffee. I'm trying to find out whether people can check the record. And before you know, security called me and said, oh, the MD wants to see you. So I walk back there. She said, oh, are you talking to that man? This is the deputy.
Wow.
So I can't coordinate.
Yes.
So that's not unique to her. I mean, we see similar things. Just really, really happy at the Bureau of State Enterprises, where Ato Basekwe, who's the head, and his deputy, they are like a head. In fact, the deputy looks at Ato every day and says, "I seat you guys for me." Eventually, Ato gets removed, and he is the one now who's been placed in charge. And all those things do not create the kind of wholesome environment for some of these institutions, the way they have been designed to work effectively. And to that me, lends credence to creating smaller institutions.
You create smaller ones that will still be the no. You break up the problem and create smaller problems. Those smaller problems will still be problems because there will be deputies. Until we have a culture where the president or the people at the Ministry of State are on top of these weaponizing of governance structures, where they don't even communicate at that level. Can you imagine a deputy telling him?
I think it's a common thing. Yeah,
No, it's very common, so it's acceptable. It's not acceptable for good business practices. It's not something that people do in functional organizations, because we cannibalize everything we do. We weaponize communication. We weaponize relationships. We undermine each other. That need to change, and it starts from the top. I like the president direction in terms of this whole corruption, and even though he's not firing people directly, but he say go on suspension and you coming back, that's fine. But in terms of the management, the operations, the president need to step into in some of these major institutions that drive our economy and be able to set a tune that you guys got to work together or you go. You know, it can't be like, I mean, I see it.
How do you strengthen oversight, for example?
The legislature, if the legislature,
we're talking about the port system as it is.
If no, the legislature doesn't have oversight over the port. They got oversight.
Well, that's extensive. That would be that will be over a longer period. But I'm looking at, for example, SOEs generally, right? The culture has been the managing directors literally have a free hand to do whatever they want to do. You know,
that's true.
They befriend the president. Maybe they can take care of the president. People, they can do whatever. What safeguards do we have? I see this president actually strengthening the Bureau of State Enterprises. I think it would be a good thing. When we will have a situation where the Bureau of State Enterprises or something like that has the responsibility to provide monitoring and evaluation can actually do such a work.
So there's some safeguards coming in. Sorry, go ahead, Ava.
No, I'm going to ask. We don't have a Bureau of State Enterprises that really should provide oversight to these people already.
It's there. It's there. But forget about Bureau of State Enterprise in this thing. Anyway, let me not dismiss it. It's important.
Don't dismiss them. They're critical.
Yeah. Yes, it's very important. But I wanted to say something. The Minister of
Finance. But before you say it, what I want to say is, wherever the law is that supports that person, the president should ensure that law is being implemented, is being applied in that role, and that person has the gravitas to use it to make sure they monitor the effectiveness of these different. Look, sometimes they're having, let's say you sell the budget and you want the input from one of these agencies and stuff, they're not even providing the necessary input. So they can, in the budget, they can say, oh, this authority or this public corporation did not provide input. That should not be acceptable. They should demand that these people work, because for government to work, government must work. And if you got vacuums there, you got weak links, you got empty links, you got to replace them. And that's where I think the fortitude of the presidency in terms of making some of these hard decisions is not too evident, and it needs to come about. Sorry, Mame, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I want close. It was a good show. I'm trying to rush to the airport, but it's a very good show. Let's continue to have the discussion. The motive and intent of the law, the original motive and intent, do not seem to me to be good. When the Senate first action to separate the port, the Senate passed a resolution instructing the president to issue an executive order to stop the MPA from supervising the ports. That was the first attempt to separate the port. So that tells you that there was a bad motive, a motive not grounded in deep thinking, a motive not grounded in best practices, and not grounded in public policy and port reform. You pass a resolution telling the president to issue an executive order to dismantle the institution that is responsible for over 80% of your import and export as an import and export dependent country. The chaos it would have created, they were not concerned. All their concern is to take control over certain ports. So the control of ports was the motivation behind this. When that attempt failed, when the president refused, then they begin to start giving it some thought, and then it went to developing laws. And because they could not find similar model in the region and Africa, so they went to federal government and took a federal regime and brought it to Liberia. Without consultation, there's a post expert here. He should have been invited at the public hearing to give his opinion. And several other port experts in Liberia, maritime authority, they refuse. Austin was the chairman king on the show. The law was in the House of Representatives. Lawmakers are telling you we did not see this law. They just told us to pass it. Musa Ability complained. He called a press conference. Several other lawmakers, they did not see it. So it tells you that the underlying motive is not good, and they're just trying to whitewash it with buzzwords like decentralization, post-modernization. Those are the words they're using.
Oh, I'm seeing nothing about modernization in our port. Nothing in our bill.
It will be modernized when it take over.
So they try to do it. That's why we're calling on the president to say, Mr. President, the whole one about port regulatory agency, I will beg you, don't create burden on government. Don't create burden on the port. The maritime authority has that authority. Let them enforce that authority. Let them augment their capacity and ensure that they regulate the port as required by law. But the one that has to do with decentralization, we agree with you partly. What we disagree with you is do not dismantle the MPA. And you dismantling the MPA that has power over all ports, but you're establishing a board that also has power over all ports. So the only thing you have a problem with is the name MPA. But the structure and authority, you don't have problem with it. So we say we agree with you partially. Let the MPA remains, let the act be amended, or even while the act is being amended, let the board of directors pass a resolution to allow each of these ports some form of empowerment to make their own budget, carry on their own form of procurement for certain threshold, make administrative decisions at certain level so that it can be more faster and more engaged at their level. But do not dismantle the port, do not create a regulatory agency. It causes burden on government, it rapture the authority of the maritime authority, and it creates disincentive for vessel call to Liberia. That would be our position on it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, my mate, thanks a lot, and Abba, thanks for calling. The first thing the last thing I would do would make assumptions on what the motives are.
Charles, before you come in, I wanted to share the visual of the port for you to give us a little bit of insight into that alignment in terms of the spacing, the expansion capability, and all of that of the current port. So let me share this screen with you. So this is a visual area view of the current port. You can rotate it.
So to rotate it all the way to the waterfront, that's what the port is really. To turn it around.
To the right or to the left?
Anyway, just turn it around so that the land will be behind us.
Oh, well, let me see if we can do that one.
Yeah, you should be able to do it 360.
Yes.
Then you put us in the water so I can show you what we're talking about. Most of the port land has been leased already for warehouses with all different companies.
Correct.
So what you want to be talking about is actually the waterfront. You're showing me the land. So go to the waterfront. So the port
development. This on the waterfront yet? This part yet?
Yeah, but it's partial. And we're seeing it. Okay, the waterfront is behind there. But from my vantage point, from the left side, they want there two breakwaters.
Let me see if this one shows the waterfront. Is this a better view?
Yeah, much better. It's not complete, but it's much better. Okay.
So is it complete?
Not bad. It's not complete, but it's much better. If you see way on the left side there, that's where you see the concentration of ship is the APM terminal.
Okay.
So the APM terminal, there are two ships there. So the state got one empty berth right before the finger pier.
So right now, only three ships can fit in there.
Where the average vessels that we bring to Liberia, only 3 can fit there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that means it's small, then.
Yeah, it's small by bigger port standard, but we are a feeder port. We are not a very large port. Yeah. So if we want to be larger, it's not only the pier. We have to increase the depth and all that. Our depth right now, I think, is 12 meters, 12 to 15 meters. So in front of that, if you look way on the far side where you see the ships, APM terminal, in front of it, there's a little space. It's the APM terminal because that space is one more berth. Then you got the stuff that going into the water. That is the BMC pier. I mean the LMC pier. That is not APM terminal. It's still under the Port Authority. But is on a concession with Western Cluster. All
With
the
these
stuff you see there,
with these small boats, with these small
yeah,
boats.
those are batches.
Okay,
Those
the barges.
are, yeah, they are used to load the iron ore for Western Cluster when they are exporting. So
Okay.
because the port basin is small and the depth, so the iron ore, the ocean carrier remains in the sea.
So
And they load the
so
iron.
out here between the two little outcroppings here, the ship remain here.
That's the entrance channel that will come in the basin. So when you go through that, you are going into the ocean.
Okay.
In the ocean at the transshipment point, and they take these badges, load them with the iron ore, and take them to the ship every now and then until they load the ship.
I was about to say that look tedious, but go ahead.
Well, it actually tedious. It would be easier if the ship could just come under there and you use conveyor belts, you know, to load them. But in most of our ports, they've been doing the same thing. I think in Buchanan also, they're moving barges to the deep sea to load the ocean-going vessel. Then coming on this side, we're talking about port land development. After that pier, move the picture on this side, you see where it's available in the port. Because all these areas that we're covering are under concession already. All the way, bring it back to the water. All the way to the other pier there you're seeing is the BMC pier, which is actually now under concession with China Union.
This side right here?
Yeah, you see that, the two piers there, in between that BMC pier and about 600 meters coming back. Yeah, it's the available land that could be used to build a multi-purpose port. But if you look, there's not much on land space to be able to do massive development there.
Right.
If you go further behind the BMC pier, you go close to the Coast Guard base area. The NAFA has claimed the old Maserado fishing company ice factory is way at the end. To build a port. They did not come around to doing that yet. So the thing is that they will build a fish processing plant somewhere over there, and then they build a port over there. I mean, all this to say that there's limited space in the free port to be able to do extensive development. There's a 600 meter of waterfront there that I think that is being earmarked under this proposed project to develop a multi-port. But there are all kinds of considerations. There are certain cargo that are already captured by APM terminal under concessions. So even though there are congestion, how you get those cargo to be accommodated on that pier is a whole different legal and other matter that need to face out. As far as real mass use of port, the magic is actually in building a dedicated dry bulk port closer to the Cape Mount area, like I said, because the bulk of the iron ore mines that have been concessioned that are still locked in are on that side. And it will be easier to take them to that port than to bring them to Monrovia. Pachico is just a good example. They build a port on that side. The capacity might not be enough to suck in all the big iron ore concessions there, but I think that's the model.
All right. But yeah,
this is just off track. But what I was saying to end up is that basically there's no foolproof system in these kinds of situations.
Right.
So it's good that we're having this conversation. I mean, the way the things were pushed fast, maybe it's good that they have been slowed down, so that people can have a reasonable discussion on what's optimal under these current circumstances. Because either way, there are pros and cons on both sides, and it's not for me to cast dispersion on anybody on their intention, because the word is out there. Some people got contract for Buchanan, and that's why they wanted. Hey,
well, yeah, that Buchanan port is hot. That's the whole thing underlining it. They just masquerading with the other three ports.
Let's look at the propositions, and I'll be glad if the government can allow it to go into discussion so that we'll find the best way out. And to close, I'm glad that I could put up some 2-3 hours of my time.
No, your time is really appreciated.
Where do I send the invoice?
we know you consulted with the Chinese people and they can pay that select people. We understand that, so we really appreciate your time. But no, seriously,
they left free things somewhere then too. Yeah.
This has been a good show. Hopefully the powers that be are listening. Hopefully the people you reach out to, the representative and his colleagues who sponsor this bill, like Emmanuel is saying, they can come, give some audience to us, and at the same time to the public. Let maritime professionals, you, Cyrus, Mohammed, and other people, factor into these discussions and get some expert opinions. And there are some other Liberians. We just need to search among our Liberian people. We have cried for this Liberian professional database, and it hasn't really been developed yet, where we can just go in and find professionals from any sector. But in the absence of that, I think these lawmakers, when they're pushing these bills, they got to bring a little bit more effort to do these things. Because look, Liberia has a lot of attractive opportunities, but unfortunately a lot of times the people in front of those opportunities are blocking it rather than facilitating the opening, the engagement, the invitation to more people who can impact it positively. So that mindset has to change, that you are a gatekeeper but you're not a blocker or a stopper. And we need more investment, more solid investment that is not necessarily in your individual interest, but is in the interest of the entire population. But I really appreciate your time, your knowledge, you and my mate, Mohammed. We appreciate you coming on. We are sorry we couldn't really get your input because of the network or the other issues, and that's a separate thing. And then Cyrus Johnson, thank you for coming on. So, not to
Yes,
forget,
Cyrus,
we are
thank you for
still in
coming on
mourning.
channel.
Cyrus, you're a friend of Felita Phillips and a friend of Akina
That's
as
not a
well.
friend. That's my sister. Kenna is my brother.
Right.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm headed back to the States next week to
Right. So I
to
may be out
mourn
of the
them.
country at the time, funeral stuff is going on, but I plan when I come back to go and visit him.
Yeah,
So
it's a great loss.
yes, it's a major loss, folks. And this is somebody, I do share my family information, my wife and other stuff, but this is somebody who like really professes love for his partner publicly, consistently, not only on anniversary or birthday, but just as a means of how he works, how he lives, how he acts. So when somebody experiences that kind of loss, it's a tremendous loss to them. And our prayers are with his family, with him to be resolute and resilient in spite of what has happened. But he also has his faith. He's a believer, and hopefully he will be able to
Yeah.
do some. My man, I went to Harper. That place is beautiful. I just found some of my pictures from Harper. I'm so excited. I went into Topman's house, and his safe, the rusted safe, is still standing. I
You
took
saw
a
the
picture of the safe.
you saw the fishing garden that facing the net in the yard.
Yes. Zogos are living in the building. And the
I
guy,
went
the
over.
Zogo who live in the building, the commander of that crew, he was giving me a tour. He was telling me he took us down, everything. I mean, look, Liberia is a wonderful place, of course.
Yeah.
We got to find a way to make it happen for our country. It's just unfortunate that, but the safe has not been open. Nobody blasted open that safe.
What?
And
Those Zogos can't do that there?
no,
What?
you can see. I saw bullet marks on the safe and all that kind of stuff, but still they haven't opened the safe yet. So it'll be interesting one day the kind of documents that could come out of there if they open that safe. You know,
Yeah.
um,
It might just start to melt when they open it.
uh, well, didn't they open some other safe that they got some layout of Morovia or something from?
Yeah, at the old executive mansion, which is now the
Right.
headquarters of the GAC. That's the last joke I will leave you with, right?
Okay.
So there were three safes in the main office there. Remember, this is the place that was the office of the president on Ashmore Street. So when John Molu was in that office, he got people to take plywood and separate the safe from his office, because it took out the ambience of his good office. So when he left, the other guy came there, Kilby. He insisted
Cubic.
that
Yes.
he said they got to take the safe out of the place because he doesn't like the way he treated the office. None of them thinking about why in the safe though. They just want to, disguise the safe. So USAID pay a Ghanaian company that brought the lift and they put the three safes in the back of a truck and took it to the archive on 12th Street. It's a 12th Street,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So we all went down there. I went with my camera to see that opening the safe, so we'll find out what in it. So the bust the first safe, it's empty. Second safe, they busted as a treasure trove of documents, including the original copy of the Declaration of Independence.
And that's where Patrick Borough got that stuff about how the
No, he
island
got it
was
from
sold.
somewhere else. He bought it, the deed. I think he got it from research in the States. But the original copy of the Declaration of Independence, they are, I think, 1884 Hetro treaty that was signed by Edward Wilmer Blading when the British ship came to our coast and said they would blow us off unless we move the border 50 miles back to the Mano River. It forced us to sign that document. That treaty was in there. A couple of other papers, but then right away the papers started to disintegrate, apparently exposed to the element. So they had to close it quick. In fact, I had a guy say, "Oh, they found something there that I should do, Madam Sirleaf." So they closed it quick. And I had tried to follow up on the documents that were there. One time they say, "Well, at the law library." I've gone there. I haven't seen it yet. So interesting. These safes are around. I mean, any kind of Banampigin who want to bust that safe. But our GSC people were anxious to just push the safe to put curtain around it and here and there. And those safes may hold artifacts, important historical material. But it's not like us.
I found the safe. Let me show it to you. Hold on. I was looking for it. I found the safe, bro. Let me share it so you can see the picture.
Say you came out and get Bama, you stole that safe, stay close?
No, no, I'm interested in that safe.
You need to go back down there.
You see the safe?
Wow, that's a big safe.
That's a big safe. And there are bullet marks and stuff on it where people are trying to shoot it open. I hope the bullet didn't ricochet and hit them.
Maybe
but this is it.
The entrance towards the wall or what?
Yeah, that's the entrance coming out. It was right in the corner. They had a cul-de-sac for it. Look at the pipe, my man. But if you see, oh, I got my man picture here. Oh. But let me find, I can't find the file. That's the thing. But that Hopper trip was a wonderful trip, brother. It's on my Google Drive. I got a lot of pictures.
It's a beautiful place, really beautiful place.
I mean, we're on top of, you know, he has like a little patio on the top of the building where you can see over near the whole Hopper. I mean,
oh, you should have taken the drone down there, man.
My man, I didn't. Who knew about drone that time? That was around about 2016, 2017. I went there. My man, Hopper is so beautiful. Yeah,
man, hey, but it's been good, man. But I gotta run.
No, I gotta run too. Thank you. I appreciate all of you for coming on, and hopefully we can do this for our people, you know, on a more regular basis. People like you,
thank you,
who now only know about one sector, but you know how one sector ties into the other sector, and fully understand a lot of these things will be a great asset to people understanding more and more how our economy can be built up, how we can create jobs, how we can have economic empowerment, and all of that kind of stuff. The next one we were trying to do, the next special will be about our minerals in terms of, you know, the survey that they're talking about. What minerals do we really have in Liberia? What kind of surveys have been done? What needs to be done now from a modern perspective? Yes, the United States Geological Service did some surveys before and all of that kind of stuff. And then how is our mineral sector operating to benefit our people? The different issues that people have with the destruction of the environment, the Chinese intrusion, and all of those things. Hopefully,
we made Chinese intrusion.
Oh man, you're working for Chinese people now, so you won't be
Chinese people making business.
But listen,
but I encourage you to bring in this program the people in the sector. If you're talking about mineral, access, Ministry of Lands and Mines people, to bring somebody on who got access to the real data. This thing we're discussing, I mean, it would have been good to bring the Port Authority people on to be able to.
But Cyrus, you know how this originated? This originated when you put a post in a room about the decentralization bill, and then we expanded to the regulatory bill, and then we said let's come out and talk about it, get the pros and cons. So it was a short time in terms of really getting other people, but yes, we try to invite, because this is not the end. Since the bill is back, and hopefully this other decentralization bill will have a relook, we can invite the people who sponsoring the bills to come, make the case, and have a wider conversation around it. But
So
thank
we
you
can
for
find the best, yeah, the best thing that
yeah,
works.
yeah.
Okay, man.
Thank
How
you.
about you? You take care down there, man.
All right. See you
But
soon when you
to
come on this
everybody,
end.
thanks. Yeah,
I,
thanks
I,
for listening to.
all right. Yeah, to our listeners, want to say thank you. We appreciate you as usual. Hopefully we'll be able to bring more of these kind of shows to all of you, that you can get a better understanding of what's happening in the country. You get an understanding what motivating people to pass certain bills. So thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I'm going to a party tonight. A Riverset's cousin turned, I believe, 80 years old. So we're going to celebrate. And let me just say, happy birthday to my man, mother. That's John Law's mother, whose birthday we'll be celebrating tonight. And you, wherever you are, have fun, because it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to be with people you love and to have fun. And that's what I will be doing tonight. God bless.